I think this is lofted to right and pretty deep. Tolia near the wall. Tolia leaps and makes the catch. What a first ball game back for Tolia. What a catch.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, that's what it sounded like on the Rockies TV network last night as Matt Carpenter was robbed at the track of a home run. Alex, this was the story of the game last night. Cardinals offense has plenty of opportunities, and they're not able to come through. This has been, in some regard, the story of the season, honestly. This was supposed to be an offense that was pretty damn good. They built around their position players. We knew the pitching could be a question mark, but the offense was supposed to carry them. Well, last night, you scored 2 runs. That is something that has happened far too many times so far this year. You have scored 3 or fewer runs and a top 10 rate in all of Major League Baseball. It's not what you want if you're building around position players. Here's Ollie Marmol after the game when asked about the Cardinals' offense and their lack of production.
You look at this and you go, man, we only scored 2, and it feels like we should have done a much better job against them today. But you look at Goldie's ball, and it's caught right on the wall. Gorman hits one caught on the wall. Herrera hits that ball against their lefty there at the end. He scorches that. Nothing to show for it. They bring a homer back from Carr. It's a different game when those 4 opportunities go our way. So I do think our at-bats could have been better early, but we did take some good at-bats that also didn't go our way or have anything to show for.
So that was Ollie last night. What he said is true. You look at the expected numbers. I know people get annoyed with them. I understand it. I don't blame you for it. They're not real statistics, but it does show you the process. Their expected numbers were outstanding last night. A slugging percentage, expected slug, of about 600 over the course of that night. An expected batting average well above 300 for the night. I think it was like 450 overall. And the actual numbers didn't represent that. You look back at it. T-Bone, you texted us last night. A couple of those fly balls, if it's July instead of early June, they're going over the wall. Unfortunately, it's not July. It is early June, and they didn't go over the wall, and the Cardinals did not get the production that they needed last night to be able to come away with a victory. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Alex, this one coming in early from the 618. BK, please tell us again how bad Colorado is. Okay, I'd be happy to. So far this year...
Hold on, put your conductor hat on when you do that.
Yeah, okay. I'll put it on backwards because that feels
like
the right way to go about it.
Get your whistle, too. Blow that for everybody.
No, I think we're good on a Friday. 22-40 is their overall record, so they're losing 2 out of every 3 games so far this season.
Man.
They had just been swept by the Cincinnati Reds. Here are the final scores of those games. 13-3, 4-1, and 12-7. They had also lost 2 out of 3 against the LA Dodgers. They're a bad baseball team. There's nothing more to be said. They're terrible. I think you can make a pretty strong argument. They might be the worst team in all of Major League Baseball right now.
Good start for the Cardinals.
They are so bad, Alex, that they don't have pieces that other teams want. At least the White Sox do. They got a couple starting pitchers that teams would like. They got Luis Robert that people would like. The Rockies got nothing, absolutely nothing to offer other teams. That's how bad they are. So this was not a matter of you going up against a team that's better than we let on. No, you lost to a bad baseball team with your #1 starter on the mound last night. Alex, what'd you take away from it?
I mean, it's the same story, just a different day for the Cardinals. Offensively, like, yeah, I hear Ollie's quotes, and I understand, like, yeah, the expected numbers, and yeah, you hit those balls really well, and the defense pulled one back, and you couldn't get one over the wall. But you still didn't score the runs that you needed to. And even beyond that, where you were trying to hit those home runs, you had guys in position to score, and you weren't able to come away with that big hit. It just feels like every opportunity that you look at and you say, okay, Cardinals can build up some steam here, they lay an egg. And offensively, you're still talking about a couple of guys that are hitting for you. Beyond the Goldschmidt, who has come through, beyond the Mason Wynn, who's been great for you, beyond the Alec Burleson, all of these other guys aren't doing it for you, and you're relying on Matt Carpenter to take one to the deep wall for you and Michael Ciani to come up with a big hit for you and then get pinch hit later in the game. It just seems like you're trying to rely on all of these guys to finally click, and I can't buy into a couple of hot streaks that are just going to start clicking for them. You struggled against a bullpen the Colorado Rockies have that, honestly, I don't think is very good, and their best starter, Cal Quantrill, who starts yesterday, like, he's good.
And let's not make him into something he's not.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he's good.
He's good in Colorado standards.
But he's probably like you put him on this team, he's probably what, Lance Lynn-esque for you?
He's fine.
He'd be our perfect number 5 starter.
Yeah, well, that perfect number 5 starter for you just went out there, went 5 innings, 4 walks, 1 strikeout, and you didn't make him pay at all.
He is the definition of fine. He's got a good splitter. Didn't seem to be quite as good last night as it has been for most of the season, though. But once you eliminate that, his fastball stinks. It's been getting crushed all season long. Like, this is a guy that right now his ERA shows you 3.6. That's going to go down. He doesn't have a ton of swing and miss stuff by any stretch of the imagination. Like, this is a guy that by the end of the year will probably have an ERA in the 4s or 5s. That would be my expectation for Cal Quantrill. He is not somebody that should shut you down. And frankly, he didn't last night. The Cardinals got some really good looks off of him. They didn't drop. And somebody on the text line made a really good point. Guys, good teams get the benefit of the doubt. When they have bad luck, you can look back at it and say, off night. The Cardinals are not that so far. We can't be rewarding them for having good process when they aren't getting any of the results. At some point, you have to show something for it. 100%.
Yep.
100%. If the Cardinals had been a good offense and then they go into last night and that exact same game happens, our response is very different today. Our response today about the offense would be, weird night. Ball didn't quite fly the way that you wanted it to, and they got a little bit of bad luck. 100% agree with that. But they're not that team, and they have not been unlucky so far this year. They are a team that is getting the results that they deserve. They are not a good offensive club right now. Alex, you're right. They've got 3 good offensive players and then a bunch of guys in the lineup right now.
Real quick, I just looked at this Colorado Rockies bullpen. Worst ERA in Major League Baseball. Teams are hitting 281 against them. You picked up 5 hits against those 4 guys last night.
Yeah, they've been terrible.
4 innings and 4 hits against them.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
And not only that, like, it's not even just the fact that you got a couple of 5 hits on their bullpen and didn't take advantage. Guys, the Cardinals had a total of 14 base runners in that game. They had 8 hits, 6 walks. They went 1 for 11 with runners in scoring, 1 for 7 with runners in scoring position and left 11 guys on base. The problem once again last night, and it was what you saw early on in their struggles, how many extra base hits do you think they had last night?
Yeah.
None.
Well, they got unlucky, T-Bone.
But, like, even then, like, you got to manufacture something. Like, whether that is a stolen base, like Marp, I guess, was trying to do, where he gets picked off at first, you've got to manufacture something. This is why I say slug, baby, slug, because they have 14 guys get on base last night. 6 via hit, 8 via walk. No extra base hits equals just 2 runs, and the Colorado Rockies took advantage of their 4 hits and the 5 walks that they were given. The Rockies ended up being able to manufacture a couple more runs than you, and that's the reason they can win that baseball game. And they suck offensively. They're just a bad baseball team.
And they gifted you a run.
Yeah.
That's the other thing is you had 2 and 1 was gifted to you. And you can argue both were because it extended the inning to allow you to get that Ciani broken bat single. So it was a bad game last night, man. What was the moment that you knew the Cardinals just weren't going to be able to win that one, Alex? Was there a moment where you said to yourself, not their night? Because I had one. It was the moment that we came back with for the return. When Carpenter had that ball get to the wall, get over the wall, and they're able to bring it back into play and record an out on it. Especially when it's Matt Carpenter who had that one. That was, for me, the moment that I thought, okay, they're not winning this one, and that was in the bottom of the 5th.
If I could be honest with you, I didn't think they were winning that one going into that game. I just felt like one of them. But if there was
I mean, you didn't know for sure. And when the Carpenter had that moment, I was like, it ain't happening.
Yeah. I guess if I had to choose one.
Why did you feel that way, by the way? They had Sonny Gray on the mound.
Because it's the Colorado Rockies, man. And it's a team that is a bad team, and the Cardinals do not have success against these teams. They just don't. And I know Sonny Gray was on the mound, but I had a gut feeling that the best pitcher for the Colorado Rockies was going to go out there and shut down your offense, and you weren't going to be able to come through. If I had to pick a moment, though, probably Matt Carpenter getting tagged out in that rundown.
Oh, yeah.
That's where it felt like, okay, this is going to be one of those days.
Yeah, mine was, it wasn't even with the offense. It was when Gray really labored through the 4th, in the 5th, and then doesn't get through the 5th inning and ends up getting pulled. At that point, you'd already seen the offense, and you're like, okay, it's clear they're sleepwalking into this game. They got in late, probably. And the offense hasn't done anything against Quantrill, who's not a great pitcher. And then Sonny Gray, all of a sudden, just like with the snap of a finger, had all his powers taken away and couldn't find the strike zone. At that moment, when he got pulled and Ollie Marmol walked out to the mound to go get Matthew Liberatore in the game in the 5th inning, I went, yeah, this one's probably over.
I want to continue on that. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. The YouTube chat is off and running. It is lively today at youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. They affectionately call themselves The Graveyard. So go over there, go ahead and watch the show and get involved in the YouTube chat as well. We've got Ask Us Anything coming up at 11:45, but next, Sonny Gray has been overall good for the Cardinals so far this year. I think he's been worth every penny that they've paid him. But his last 4 or 5 starts have not been good enough, and it's not just that they haven't been good enough. They've all been weird. We'll discuss what they're getting out of him and why I did like what we heard from him after the game, coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
No, I mean, like, that's not the job of a starting pitcher. The job of a starting pitcher is not to go through spurts of great. The job is to stay out there for as long as you can and put your team into a position to win. So, yeah, like, oh, yeah, okay, I struck 4 hitters out in a row. Who cares? That's not the point of a starter.
That was Sonny Gray after the game last night. I know a lot of you agree with what he had to say there. Sonny Gray's last 4 starts have been strange, to put it lightly. He asks out of the Baltimore game. His lower half doesn't really feel right against Chicago. And then in the last 2 starts, 5 innings, 4 earned runs against Philly. And then last night just totally lost all command once you got into the 5th inning. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Alex, over those 4 starts, he's gone a total of 20 1/3 innings. He has given up 8 earned runs. It's not the guy that we were all expecting. I don't really know what to make of this, because it's really the innings that are the problem for Sonny Gray. I think he's still been good overall. It's not like he's been a bad starter. If you got this out of your number 3 starter, you'd be like, okay, it is what it is. This is kind of what you're paying for. But Sonny is their number 1. He's got to be the guy that goes out there and you feel great about it every single time that he starts. And right now, I don't. And it's a weird feeling to have him go out there and not be sure if you're going to get through 6 innings, and then sometimes not be sure if you're going to get through 5. If there is one thing that's been plaguing him, it's his 4-seam fastball. Now, it's been a pitch that has been a bit of an issue all season long. In his first few starts, whenever he was actually pitching really well, opposing hitters were batting .361 with a .600 slugging percentage against his 4-seam. That's not good. Recently, he's throwing it much less, and they're still hitting it hard. In the last 4 starts, he has thrown it 70 times, and opposing hitters are batting .500 against it with a .500 slugging percentage. Not good enough. The sweeper's been great, not landing it for strikes maybe as often as he'd like, but it's doing its job. 100 batting average against, .230 slugging percentage. Alex, what are you seeing from Sonny Gray right now? What'd you make of his start last night and really the last 4?
I mean, it's frustrating because this is supposed to be your stopper, and you haven't had a quality start from him since May 3rd, the White Sox game. So for him, you could tell he's going through it and he's struggling, and especially in his post-game comments. He's not walking a ton of dudes, although yesterday it was 4 of them, but the strikeouts are still there. It just seems like pitchers are the hitters aren't afraid of him right now. And it feels like he's trying to pick them apart meticulously, whereas if you go back through his first couple of starts, he was so aggressive in the sense of he was going right at guys, and he was just kind of the pit bull mentality. And at least in these last 4 or 5 starts, it doesn't feel that same way. It feels like he's working through something maybe confidence-wise with him on the mound, and that's starting to affect his pitches to where he was so confident in those first 4 starts. The swing and miss stuff is there. The walks, although they're getting higher, they're not awful. He's just giving up a lot more hits, which was not the case with Sonny Gray.
You know what's funny? He's allowed 11 hits in his last 20 innings. Like, some of this is just, it's all blowing up on him in an inning.
It's one inning.
Yeah, it's really not a overall systemic issue for Sonny Gray, because you look at the numbers. His past 4 starts, opposing hitters are batting .150 against him, with a slugging percentage of .219. That's an OPS of .480. That's excellent. Like, you would take that every day of the week. Mm-hmm. But it's ending up with guys crossing home plate, and so it goes back to, I think you're right, Alex, the walks. He's allowed 11 walks in his last 20 innings. And those free base runners that he's allowing right now, especially when you have a catcher behind the plate, we'll get into this a little bit later, who can't prevent the running game, that is something that is becoming a bigger and bigger issue for the Cardinals. I don't know why or how this is happening, but it feels like once he gets into the 4th or 5th inning, he has these high stress innings, and it's blowing up on him. And then you bring relievers in earlier than you were expecting, and it has this trickle-down effect of, you got to use the bullpen that day, and then they're worn out for the next day as well. That's not supposed to be the case when you have your number 1 starter.
It feels like it's a mental game.
It feels worse than the actual numbers would indicate.
It feels like a mental game with Sonny Gray. It feels like once he gets through the first time, you're like, all right, he's floating a little bit. And then when one thing happens, whether it's a walk or a hit that goes through a guy's glove, it's, now I got to find my way out of this. And as soon as Sonny starts trying to dig himself out of it, it really blows up in his face.
Yeah, and I think the big issue, especially when you look at those blow-up innings, it's the 4-seam fastball, losing command of it, because I found this interesting. Credit to Lynn Worthy of the Post-Dispatch. His last 4 starts, he has not been able to get that fastball as a strike 52% or better. In all 4 starts, it was 50% against Baltimore, 30% against the Cubs, 35% against the Phillies, 52% against the Rockies last night.
And the fastball's been his issue all year long. He's just not, for whatever reason, it has not been an effective pitch for him. I think he might need to start throwing the sinker a little bit more often.
That would be what I would say as well. You need something that is fast, whether it's fastball, sinker, to help set up that sweeper. But yeah, in these blow-up innings that you see, I mean, you saw it last night. He just had no idea where the fastball was going. When he's locked in, like early on last night, he was painting the corners. He could use the fastball, use the sweeper. He was using everything well. But it's when that one pitch kind of goes awry and it's that fastball and it's gone from him, that's when it becomes a major issue. And that's when you're really starting to see these stress innings really build up on him. Because you're right. For the numbers as a whole, when you look at them, not in terms of like ERA, because his ERA is bloated in these starts where he's struggled.
Kinda. Like, it's really just that one game against the Angels, and I guess Milwaukee as well. But those two are bloating the ERA. But the last 4, which we all agree have been weird, it's got an ERA of 3.5. That's not terrible. That's fine.
Yeah, it's not bad, but it's the reason he's not getting deep into these games, and you're really seeing these innings cut down. It is that one blow-up inning to where, for whatever reason, things really go haywire on him, and he can't seem to figure it out. And boom, next thing you know, he goes from, I think last night it was like he had like 30 pitches or something for 2 or 3 innings. He was doing really well, and then all of a sudden that 4th inning hits, and boom, all of a sudden it's going from 38 pitches in 3 innings to 30 pitches in 1 inning. So that is one thing that they'll have to work on. But I'm not concerned about it. As a guy that's a number 1, he's gone through this before. He knows what he needs to do. He's going to turn this around. And to your point, even though it has been bad in air quotes of late, it's still better than the other 4 guys in your rotation.
I'm going to say something, and it's total tinfoil theory here. How much of this is the catcher behind the plate?
I think some of it is.
Because Contreras was out in that Mets series, right? He had a really good start against the White Sox, and then it unraveled.
So another thing to keep in mind, some of this might be him getting into his own head in terms of, like, it goes back to the catcher as well, defensive issues. So you go back to that Baltimore game.
Yeah.
Cardinals go into the top of the 6th. The Orioles are down 5-0. Sonny Gray on the mound. Cedric Mullins reaches on an error. And then there's a fielder's choice, and then boom, a home run to Gunnar Henderson, and they've scored 3 now off of Sonny Gray. That's in the 6th inning. They have to pull him because Jojo Romero replaces him. That was when he asked out of the game, right? That was that high-stress inning. He ended up facing, I think it was 7 batters in that inning. A lot of it goes back to leadoff hitter gets on because of an error. Then you go to the Chicago game. He was actually really good in that game. We remember it as being strange because he was so good. And he said, my lower half, I can't get it going. I'm out after the 5th inning, right? That was what was weird about that game. His effectiveness was not up for debate. He had like 10 strikeouts, did not allow a run.
Hit.
Really good in that one. And then you go to the Phillies game. It was the top of the 1st where things started off weird for him. A walk, strikeout, single, double, strikeout, double. And boom, you're already down after the 1st inning, going into the next one down 3-0. That was what was weird about this one. And then you go into last night, and of course, it all kind of went away from him in that 5th inning. So it does feel like some of this goes back to defensive issues. Last night, it was Herrera, whether it was the pass ball / wild pitch, the guys running wild on him in that inning. You go back to that Baltimore game, it was the error by Mason Wynn. Those seem to be the things that start the decline, and then things just get kind of crazy from there.
And the reason I brought up the catcher was because he said it on his post game, which it might not be anything. That's why it's a tinfoil. But the way he framed it, to where he said, like, we've been doing a lot of, picking and choosing around the strike zone, where in the past that hasn't worked for me. And in the past, what has worked is I've gone directly at guys. And he's like, we got to go back to it. He kept using the phrase we, which made me wonder, like, maybe Ivan Herrera has a little bit of a different theory at the plate than what Willson Contreras has.
Well, he was talking about going with his slider early in counts. And I'd have to go back and look at the numbers on how often he's throwing it early in counts. That's his out pitch. Like, he's talked about this in the past. Hey, I'm like 80% 2-strike count. I'm going with my slider. And I don't care because people know it's coming and they still can't hit it. It's been one of the best pitches in the big leagues over the past couple of seasons. So he's riding or dying with that pitch late in a count. It sounds like, according to him, whether this is feel, anecdotal evidence, or it's true based on the numbers, he's going with it more often early in counts. And I wonder if that goes back to the lack of effectiveness with his fastball. So he's losing confidence at his fastball, so he's going with the slider more often early in counts, which potentially puts him behind in the count because people are waiting on the fastball, and then they end up getting a slider, so they just lay off of it. Like that, all of this could be stuff that ends up getting into his own head, and now you put him behind the 8 ball, and now he's throwing more pitches in individual innings and so on. I will say something that I appreciate about Sonny Gray is that he doesn't make excuses for himself. This is something that I have been critical of, and I think all of us have a bit in the past about Miles Mikolas, where you hear him, and he's not alone in this regard. He's just one that immediately comes to mind for me. You'll hear him post-game after he's given up like 5 runs on 12 hits. He's like, a lot of soft contact. I was a pitch away from getting out of that one without giving up even a run. It's like, no, dude, they were hitting rockets off of you. And I understand as a pitcher, you have to have that mentality to a degree. I personally, as a fan, prefer hearing what we did from Sonny Gray last night. Here's what he talked about him trending in the wrong direction.
It's a trending in the wrong direction. So we got to come in and come up with a plan moving forward and get back on track.
And then the big one. Alex, he spent a minute, which is a long time in a post-game media availability for anybody, talking about how he gets this back on track. Because there he says, listen, I'm trending in the wrong direction. That's a platitude. We've heard that from a bunch of different guys. Okay, what are you specifically going to do to get you there? Here was a minute-long explanation, his own thought process while he is just getting off of the mound, getting out of that game, following a really frustrating loss, explaining where he's at mentally, physically, and why and how he's going to get things back on track.
I got to go back and start from the beginning, go get back to the basics, force contact early, strike one, force guys to put the ball in play early, get back through the middle of the plate early in the count, not trying to be too fine early, just get back to the middle. Everything seems to be better for me and more in my favor when I am getting ahead of guys early, and the best way that I've done that in the past is really just shoot right down the middle of the plate. I do feel like over the last probably couple weeks we've been going to more edges early, which tends to, for me, when I do that, and this is not just a new thing, but it's happened to me in the past, and I remember going through this a little bit last year where I went through a 4, 5, 6 start stretch where I just continued to walk people, and the biggest jump from that was a mindset swap to be aggressive early through the middle of the plate. I think that's where I got to get back to is get back to the middle of the plate.
All right, Alex, on that point, I find this to be kind of interesting. So you look at what he was doing early in counts, 0-0, 1-0, 0-1. Those 3 counts, right? Early in counts, what was he doing previously? What is he doing now? Well, early on, prior to this stretch of 4 games where we've seen him, it's been kind of wonky. 4-seam fastball, cutter, curveball. Those are the top 3 pitches, and it's by a mile. But it's 4-seam fastball, then cutter, then curveball, early in counts. Lately, curveball's his number 1 pitch in those counts. Then it's the 4-seam fastball, then it's the sinker, then it is the cutter. So it isn't sweeper early, it's curveball early, actually, that he's going with, and that's a significant change from what he was doing earlier on in the season. I wonder if that's maybe a mindset change, and part of that could be Ivan Herrera bringing a different idea of what he should be doing early in counts. It's been, generally speaking, effective for him. Like, opposing hitters aren't hitting it hard, but it's not getting him ahead in counts as often, so maybe that's something that he's looking at here as to what he could do to get himself back on track. He's as good as anybody at self-evaluation. I'm not worried about that. I love hearing that kind of stuff post-game. I think it gives fans a really good glimpse into who Sonny Gray is as a competitor, how he believes he can get this thing back on track. But that's something you don't hear a whole lot of from Cardinals pitchers in recent seasons. And it's something that I do appreciate about Sonny is that he's going to let you in on how he's going to get this thing back on track. Not just, weird game, we'll be fine next time around.
Absolutely. There's nothing more frustrating than when somebody struggles for multiple games and continues to sell you just a pitch away, because you're not. We've seen it, and there needs to be something else that goes into it. I respect guys so much that will stand there and be brutally honest and self-evaluating. Ryan O'Reilly used to do that all the time.
Absolutely.
Where after a bad game, he would sit there and talk for a good 4 or 5 minutes and talk about how bad he was and what needs to change for him, and that's how the game has improved. So when you hear a guy talk like that, I know the performance hasn't backed it up, but the way he talks, that's a number one. Because that's a guy that knows he's better than that, knows that he is a stopper for this Cardinals team, and he's gotten away from what was working for him in the beginning. So I have all the faith in the world that Sonny Gray will figure out whatever he's dealing with right now, but I respect guys that will give that type of honesty for that type of answer.
It's also a guy that's a veteran.
Yeah.
He knows who he is. And this is one of the reasons why they went with guys like Sonny Gray, is that, hey, I know what I need to do in order to be the best version of myself, and I'm going to go out there and be that guy for the Cardinals. For what it's worth, last year he did have a stretch. This was in roughly the same time frame, a little later, but it was June last year when he kind of went through a weird spell. 5 innings against Toronto, ended up walking a couple, gave up just 1 earned run, kind of similar to this, where it's not bad. He was great last year, but it's just not getting as deep into games. Then he goes 4 innings against Detroit, walked 4 in that one. 5 innings in his next start against Boston, allowed 3 earned runs and walked 2. That's probably, my guess would be, that's probably the stretch that he's talking about here. And then he got it back on track, and in his next, basically the rest of the year, he was amazing. Over his next 13 starts, went 82 innings with a 3.4 ERA. So I have no doubt he's going to get this thing figured out. But right now, it's been a weird stretch of 4 starts for Sonny Gray, and they need more out of him. But he clearly seems to know that as well. Coming up next, Alex, there's a piece by our friend Dom over at The Athletic.
Yes.
He put out his projections for the defensemen that are hitting the free agency market this offseason.
Got to get these
No
guys.
wonder that we have no interest in any of them. We'll explain why next year on 101 ESPN.
Terry Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals fall to the Colorado Rockies last night, 3-2. They're back in action tonight. 7:15 will be first pitch as Austin Gomber will get the start for Colorado. Lance Lynn will be on the mound for St. Louis. And this weekend, starting tomorrow, we will have Game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoff final for you as the Florida Panthers take on the Edmonton Oilers. We'll have pregame coverage tomorrow night starting at 6:30. This portion update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
All right, Alex, true or false? The Blues need a defenseman in the top 4 that upgrades what they have currently.
True.
All right, this offseason, would you be happy if they went out and added somebody to be a plus defenseman on the defensive side of the puck? That'd be a good thing, right?
I'd be ecstatic if they did that.
All right, so there are some of those that are available this year via free agency. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Our friend Dom over at The Athletic, and I say the word friend loosely there, of course. He wrote about all of the top defensemen that are available this year via free agency. I'm going to read you the guys with their ages that are considered, according to his numbers. You can take this or leave it, I understand. But according to his metrics, they're a plus defensively. Brady Skye, he's 30 years old. Matt Roy, 29 years old. Brett Pesce, 29 years old. Chris Tanev, 34 years old. Dylan DeMello, 31. Alex Carrier, am I pronouncing that correctly? 27. Nice, okay. Ian Cole, 35. So you can just go ahead and cross off like basically everybody that I just read. I also don't trust Carolina Hurricanes defensemen. Their numbers, I believe, are skewed because of the system in which they play. Yes, they're going to look better defensively because they're almost always in the offensive zone. It's just something that concerns the hell out of me whenever you're looking at them trading teams. So Brett Pesce, for example, Brady Skye, I know they're 29 and 30 years old. I'm not all that interested in either of them. 4 years and $5 million or 4 years and $7 million, which is the projections for both of them currently either. So you're looking at a guy like Matt Roy, 4 years, $6 million for a 29-year-old guy is their current projection on him. Alex Carrier, who I don't know a whole lot about, honestly, Alex.
Second, third pair defenseman for Nashville. They're getting rid of him because they've got a younger, better defenseman.
4 years, $4.5 million at 27 years old is the current projection on him as well, so at least he fits into the age range. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
If you're looking at guys that fit into the Blues' current timeline and are considered to be plus defensemen right now on the defensive side of the puck, that's it. It ain't a whole lot to offer right now in the free agency market.
No, not at all. And I think it's also important when you're looking at this free agency market to determine what is necessary for the Blues. The right side is set, barring some type of trade. You've got Colton Parayko, you've got Justin Falk, you've got Matt Kessel. That right side is done. You don't have to worry about a right side. So basically that wipes out Alex Carrier, it wipes out Brett Pesce, and it wipes out, I think if I'm not mistaken, Dylan DeMello. Then you go to the left side. I don't think it's really necessary to go get a second or third pair defenseman because you've got Nick Leddy, who played really good for you last season, Tyler Tucker, who's a left-handed defenseman, and you've got a lot of left-handed guys who probably at best are a second or third defenseman, and Scott Perunovich. You need a top guy. You need a guy to play with Colton Parayko, and if you want Nick Leddy up there, then you need somebody to play with Justin Falk. To me, that takes out Brady Shea because I don't believe he fits into the criteria. He's more of a offensive-minded defenseman that's bad defensively, and I think you have that right now in Torrey Krug. Do I want to pay another guy $7 million? No. Absolutely not. Matt Roy, fine, but I don't think he fits the criteria. I think he's a lot like what Nick Leddy is.
He's 29 already.
And he's 29. And then you got Chris Tanev. I love Chris Tanev, but if I was ready to win a Stanley Cup, I'd sign Chris Tanev. Yep. I'm not going to go get Chris Tanev to be here for a team that's going to be underperforming. None of these guys fit the criteria of what the Blues need.
These are the players that the Blues would have signed 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Not right now.
When you were ready to go on that cup run in 21 or in 20 right before COVID hit in 19, these were the guys that you'd touch the market with because it's thinking, okay, well, we need to fill certain spots. But now you need to kind of restructure this defense and really, I don't need a right-handed defenseman. I need a left-handed defenseman that can play with either Colton Parayko or Justin Falk in my top four and play on the power play and on the penalty kill.
There's just not free agents that I'm particularly interested in this offseason. There's a couple that you could find interesting, but most of them I find more interesting than compelling for this team.
Right.
If they end up going to the market this year and sign one of the young forwards to a below market value deal compared to what we were expecting, cool. I'm fine with that. If they went to market and signed Alex Carrier and it ends up being 3 years, $4 million per, cool. Fine. I don't know that it's a significant upgrade, but fine. That's kind of it, though.
Yeah.
As I look at some of these, and Nikita Zadorov is a guy that ends up getting a lot of conversations locally because of his size and his physicality. It sure sounds like he's going to end up re-signing with Vancouver.
Yeah.
It makes sense for them. They're in a win-now mode. When you look at some of the numbers, and you can take it or leave it, again, that's fine. He's 6'6", 248 pounds, but the write-up here, Alex, who was the guy couple of years ago? He was the belle of the ball at the trade deadline. I'm blanking on his name right now. I think he ended up going to Florida, if I'm not mistaken.
Defenseman?
Yeah. Big, physical, was like terrible based on every metric. All of them were blinking red lights saying, do not trade for this guy. And I'm blanking on what the guy's name was.
Is it Radko Gudas?
No. I'll have to look up who it was. But
I don't remember.
I think the Panthers ended up trading for him. I'll look that up. But it reminds me of that. Here's the write-up on Nikita Zadorov. Again, this comes from Dom, who I know a lot of people don't like anyway, so that may color how they hear this. There might not be a more fascinating defenseman on the market than Zadorov. He's rumored to be looking for a contract that could look like a disaster. For someone who plays a third-pair role, his on-ice results are extremely uninspiring. With Vancouver, he was on ice for 47% of the expected goals, well below their team average and well below what you would expect from a defenseman who makes $5 to $6 million. That's more like top pair money, and Zadorov simply doesn't have the results to back that up. His net rating is actually a negative, which is right in line with his current value for us, which means that he would be a third pairing defenseman making much less money. Alex, this is the kind of profile that I think teams typically try to avoid. I understand how you talk yourself into it because he's a fun player that plays that physical brand of hockey. But when I read stuff like this and I think about where the Blues are at with their build right now, I'm not sure they can afford to miss on a player this way.
No, you can't. And I've always said it with Zadorov, and I know Jamie loves Zadorov, and I mean, I don't blame him. The build of that guy is a perfect player to have if you're ready to win a Stanley Cup. But I felt as if Zadorov hit the market, he was going to get overpaid for what he did in the playoffs with Vancouver.
It was Ben Sherratt, by the way.
Ben Sherratt, that's a really good one. Okay, yeah. The Zadorov signing is... You're signing him to be a second pair defenseman, and he's probably at the end of that contract going to look like a third pair defenseman. And it just doesn't benefit a team where the Blues are at right now. You can't put yourself in a position, especially when you have all of these guys that are younger, that are draft picks, that are left-handed defensemen that might profile into something in a couple of years. The way we talk about signing a centerman or trading for a centerman to not block Dalibor Dvorsky is why I'm not going to go give Brady Shea 4 years at $7 million a year or Brett Pesce 4 years at $5 million, because they're at best a second pair defenseman for you. And frankly, they don't make your team any better than it would be putting these younger guys in a position so that they can have some success like Matt Kessel did. So for the Blues, stay the hell away from this defenseman market, just like I've been saying, stay the hell away from the forward market. Make trades if they're available for you. Otherwise, stand pat and wait till the next offseason.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. One other quick update on the NHL side of things, because I'm totally with you. It's the trade market that I'm interested in, not the free agency market. Elliot Friedman said earlier today on the 32 Thoughts podcast, quote, Carolina is letting people know that they consider Martin Necas to be a budding star, and the kind of return that they want is star power. That's what they want in return. Jeff Merrick said in response, okay, so we're not dealing with picks or prospects here if Martin Necas is traded. Alex, I continue to believe if there is a team that makes sense for the Blues and for a trade that includes Pavel Buchnevich, it is probably Carolina, because Martin Necas is exactly the type of player that the Blues should be looking for this offseason. He is young. He can play center or wing. He views himself as a center. You could at least try that next year while you're trying to figure out, okay, where's Dalibor Dvorsky at in his development curve? And if the Carolina Panthers want a star in return, I don't know how many teams are going to be willing to trade that for a young player like Martin Necas. The Blues might be. The Blues might be the rare team that's willing to do it. And Carolina is the exact kind of team that would take on that one-year deal and say, I'm good with this. We'll just go ahead and see what this looks like next year and either let him walk in free agency or they'll re-sign him after next season. But they'll probably let him play on that one-year contract.
Yeah, they will. That's what Carolina always does, and then hope the player loves it and wants to sign for a cheaper deal when they're there. And also, mind you, it sounds like they're not going to be able to keep Jake Gensel because Jake Gensel wants a big contract, and it sounds like they're not willing to give it to him. So they're going to need a top six winger, which a lot of teams aren't willing to give up for something that they don't know how it fits into their profile. There's three teams in my opinion that if you're going to dangle Pavel Buchnevich, you probably should this offseason. Carolina's one of them for a guy like Martin Necas. I've brought up Ottawa to get your defenseman and Vegas to get your defenseman. Those are the three teams, and as much as I love Pavel Buchnevich, now you're hearing this about Martin Necas, who's a 25-year-old who's going to get an RFA contract that isn't going to be north of what Pavel Buchnevich is going to be making on his new contract. If you're telling me I could get that falls in line, that I could probably lock up for a good 5-year deal, I'm going to take that opportunity right now. And look, it sucks to lose Pavel Buchnevich, but this is how you continue to make a competitive retool by trading this player to bring in a younger player that's got the same upside.
He brought up Ottawa. I think the other two are much more likely because he does have that 12-team no-trade list talking about Pavel Buchnevich. And I have to imagine Ottawa is somewhere on that list. Could be wrong there, but I would assume Ottawa would be one of those 12 teams. I would guess Vegas is definitely not on that list, and I wouldn't think Carolina would be on that list either. So those might be more likely destinations for them, even if Ottawa, from the Blues' perspective, makes a lot of sense. He's Alex, that's T-Bone on BK. Ask us anything, sports or otherwise, coming up next. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my friends over at Rhino Shield. If you're a business owner right now and your building looks worn down, if the paint on the exterior is deteriorating, look, that's important because that's what customers are going to be seeing. It's time to give it an upgrade. And there are plenty of businesses around the area that have called Rhino Shield to get that upgrade. Hindu Temple over in St. Louis, they're using them for the second project to be serviced by Rhino Shield. CMC Electric in Maryville, Illinois. There's even one right out by me in High Ridge, a plaza that went from looking old, dingy, run down to looking brand new thanks to the work of Rhino Shield. The coating process that they use, it's different than paint that you're going to buy from the hardware store. It's ceramic coating 2 to 3 times thicker, and it sticks 8 to 10 times thicker than any other paint you're going to put on the exterior. It sticks to whatever you have, asbestos, block, brick, hardy plank, stucco, all of it. Rhino Shield makes it look better. It's backed by a 25-year transferable warranty. It's the coating of a rhino thanks to Rhino Shield. Give them a call today. Tell Darren Alex Ferrario sent you and find out how you can upgrade your business, your home with Rhino Shield. 877-25-RHINO, 877-25rhino.com.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. You guys get your questions in now. We will get to them here on BK and Ferrario. Alex from the 314, can you explain how the Cardinals can elevate their pitching staff if they won't spend on the elite pitchers and we have no elite prospects in the system?
Sure can't. Suck for a couple of years so you can draft in the top 10. That's how. Good news, you got a 7th overall pick this year.
I think we take an outfielder.
I'd probably take a shortstop. Area of need.
So
honestly, I just take whoever's best available.
The other team that I root for is named the Kansas City Royals.
What?
And I'm using them as an example here, Alex. I do think it can be a little bit instructive. So last year at the trade deadline, they traded Aroldis Chapman to Texas. And in return, they got a young man by the name of Cole Ragans. Now, at the time, Cole Ragans was a relative unknown in Major League Baseball. He had appeared in 25 games for the Texas Rangers and had an ERA above 5. Gets over to Kansas City, immediately is inserted into their rotation. The rest of that season as a starter had a 2.6 ERA, was striking out the world, and so far this year, he's picked up where he left off. He started 13 games for him this year as a 3.2 ERA, 89 strikeouts in 73 innings. He's been a top 10 pitcher in the American League probably so far this year. And then beyond that, they went out in the offseason and signed Seth Lugo, who's a legitimate AL Cy Young candidate right now. They signed Michael Wacha, who's been fine for them. He's been for them basically what you've had so far from like Kyle Gibson. And they had Brady Singer, who is their equivalent of like a better version of Zach Thompson, probably would be the way that I would describe him. He's kind of been up and down so far in his major league career, but he's having a really good season this year. So they added 2 starters via free agency, and they traded for one at the deadline last year. That's your formula. If you want to really upgrade your rotation in a meaningful way, you got to get it exactly right and get super lucky at the trade deadline by selling off pieces, probably Ryan Helsley. And you got to go to the market once again and aim for a higher upside than what you did this past year with Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson.
So you got to be able to evaluate talent.
Yeah.
And
get lucky. Like some of this is just the Royals lucked out. They got it right with Cole Ragans. I don't think they expected him to be this.
Yeah. I think a lot of people were hoping TK Roby was that guy that they got lucky with. And I mean, so far it hasn't looked really good for him. Now, 22 years old, maybe things change, but that's just the part that I don't trust this team in. I don't trust this team in looking at another team's prospects and saying, this guy could be a top-tier pitcher for us.
Fair.
They failed the last couple of times.
See, I'm not willing to criticize them for that just yet from their recent trades because we haven't seen a lot of Roby, but like they seem to have nailed Sajasi. Sajasi's a really good position player, and I understand that's different. Prado's having a great season down in AAA. Like, it just comes down to the other thing with the Cardinals, and it's why they're in such a weird spot, and I don't know how they necessarily got here, but we've talked about it. A lot of their pitching prospects are super young in the league that they are in. Like, McGreevy is super young compared to the rest of AAA. So is Roberse and Kloffenstein, I believe. Mm-hmm. And then you look at Tink Hintz and TK Roby. They're pretty young that are in AA right now. Like, they're trying to push these guys along faster and hoping that they can develop a lot quicker than what it typically takes for a starter because they are so desperate for those guys to get up here. But I think they're just now at the point where they've realized, okay, look, we can't rush these guys. We've got to let them get their seasoning down in the minor leagues, and we've just got to do our best to patch this together for now.
From the 314, guys, what are the odds that you think that the Cardinals could or would trade for Luis Robert? I've seen his name come up a lot lately. If he played for the Cardinals, people would be talking about trading him, not trading for him. He's had one good season. He is the bizarro version of Tyler O'Neill. He never stays healthy. He was amazing last year. A top 15 MVP candidate in the American League.
That's why people keep bringing his name up.
But the year prior, he played fewer than 100 games. So far this year, he's been able to play in 10. And in 2022, he was not a very good offensive player this year. And this year, such a small sample size, but he hasn't been very good offensively either. Given what the asking price is going to be, that is not a guy that I would want to trade for. The Cardinals need more certainty, not more question marks.
Something scares me about 11 home runs, 13 home runs, 12 home runs, 38 home runs, 3 home runs. Now, I know it's 10
Tyler
games.
O'Neill.
Yeah,
that's what he is. He's Tyler O'Neill.
I think you're going off of what last year was and thinking I want that guy because he's an MVP candidate, but you can't you can't always chase the former MVPs and hope that they become MVPs. Like, it worked for Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado that 1 year, but most of the time when you're chasing guys who have been MVPs in the past, it typically doesn't get back to that.
Yeah, and just to record, this guy's not even close to the level of Goldschmidt Arenado because this guy can't stay healthy and this guy can't put it together consistently. Goldie and Arenado, until recently, were guys that you could like put in pen, 30 home runs, 100 RBIs, they're going to hit like 280 to 300, have this amount of on base and this slug. He's not that. He is Tyler O'Neill 2.0.
Yeah, and I love the talent, and if the Cardinals needed to bet on upside, go get him. This is a Dodgers move. If the Dodgers want to add some upside to their lineup and be like, hey, there's a chance this guy becomes special and we've got so many prospects just waiting in the system, let's go get him. He's available, sure. And he's a corner outfielder. Like, this is a perfect move for the LA Dodgers or the Phillies, who apparently want to add another outfield bat. If you're one of those teams that already has the certainty locked into your lineup and you're just betting on other ancillary parts, go get Luis Robert. He's amazing for that. Cardinals 2 years ago, go get him. Cardinals right now, they're not in that place. They need more certainty in the middle of their lineup, and he doesn't provide that. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get into some NFL quick hitters. But coming up next, speaking of certainty, are the Cardinals getting enough out of Paul Goldschmidt right now? And if this is what he's going to be for the rest of the season, what does it mean for them? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Charlie's got a 2-0 count. And this goes to the backstop. And here comes Cade. He'll score standing up. And it's 3-0 Colorado.
That's what it sounded like last night on the Colorado Rockies TV network as they get a wild pitch that they're able to score on with Alex and T-Bone on BK. Alex, I like Ivan Herrera. I think he's going to be a pretty good player at the major league level. I think eventually he can be a really solid hitter as well. I'm really worried about what we're seeing from him defensively right now. Most notably, what we're seeing from him and his inability to throw runners out. We were looking at this before the show today on where he's at in terms of the caught stealing numbers. It's among the worst in all of Major League Baseball, guys. He has allowed 36 stolen bases so far this year in 35 appearances as a catcher. He's at 8%. 8%. He has caught 3 of the potential 39 would-be stealers. 8%. That's one of the worst rates in the sport right now. I hope that eventually this is something that he can work on to the point where he gets to be at least league average. We saw the Cardinals from where Willson Contreras was last year to where he was when he got hurt this year. He improved dramatically behind the plate. Now, some of that might also be why he got hurt. So let's keep that in mind. But I do think that the Cardinals have a chance to be able to make Ivan Herrera into a usable catcher. But right now, it's rough when he's behind the plate, man. And if I'm Sonny Gray, I'm not sure I want him back there the next time that I'm starting. Again, this is not a shot against Ivan Herrera. He's a really young catcher, and I think he's got a chance to be a good one. But right now, it is something that is a liability for the Cardinals when he's back there, Alex.
Yeah, it is. And I love the bat of Ivan Herrera, but I don't think he's a catcher for you in the now. And once Willson Contreras comes back, obviously he won't be. And in this position, I think your best bet to have a backup catcher would be Pages, because defensively he's sound for you. You know, and in a backup catcher role, you're only going to see him once every, 3 or 4 days if he's on the getaway day, basically, and that's about it. And for Ivan Herrera, I don't know if it's just committing to the catcher role and trying to fix that defense, which is very possible for him, or maybe it's shifting him around, or frankly, depending on what it looks like and what the demand is, he might be a trade asset for you, because I think long-term picture, I'm not sure Ivan Herrera is the catcher for you because of the defensive deficiencies and how important that truly is for this Cardinals team. And even with that offense, you're talking about using him as an asset off of the bat or off of the bench. You're talking about maybe using him as a DH if his bat consistently hits for you. But right now, and I understand the position that you're in, and you play him over Pages until Willson Contreras is back. But once Willson Contreras is back, I'm not sure he's an everyday guy in your lineup because the bat doesn't even play like it did at the beginning of the season.
Someone in the text line said, guys, but what about his pop time? That's what matters. It's not stolen bases, because that could totally be on the pitching staff. Got to know his pop time as well. Pop time below league average by a decent amount. His arm below league average by a decent amount as well. When you combine both of those things, you can be below average on one of the two. If you're below average on both, guys are going to be running left and right on you. And then when you add in that this is a pitching staff that has been they've been stealing bases on them as well, regardless of who's in the game. It's going to be a problem for the Cardinals, and Ivan Herrera is part of that issue. And it goes back to Willson Contreras. This team needs him. Yeah. I think we are seeing right now just how valuable he is to the Cardinals, both behind the plate and at the plate. They need his offense because they need another right-handed bat that hits for average and power. They're lacking that. We saw the lineup last night, guys. I don't know if you guys agree with this, but when I saw it at first, I sent you guys the text. I said, I think this is the best Cardinals lineup that they have to offer currently. Mm-hmm. And when you're going up against a right-handed pitcher, that means that Matt Carpenter's in it. I don't know if that's a great sign for where things are at right now that I can say that, and it's true. That Matt Carpenter being in your lineup as your designated hitter is currently your best option. If you have Willson Contreras in the lineup, I don't think that's the case. I think you're able to put Ivan Herrera in there at DH. You've got Willson Contreras probably batting fifth. So you go Wynn, Burleson, Goldie, Gorman, Contreras, Arenado, and now Donovan's batting seventh, or Ivan Herrera's batting eighth, and that looks more like a contending team's lineup. When you don't have him out there right now, you are lacking that middle of the order production, and you're lacking a threat behind the plate that will scare teams from running on your pitchers.
Yeah, and I'm 100% with you. That is where they are right now, to where that is their best lineup. But once Contreras comes back, you're right. Now you've got the middle of the order bat that you can kind of pair with what Goldie's been doing lately, with Gorman when he's hot as well. And defensively, you're right. Like, it was clear last night, Colorado was not afraid to try and take a base on Ivan Herrera. And his pop time is a little bit better than Ivan Herrera's, but he's such an easy out at the plate that you can't put him in the lineup as a starting catcher. So that you're right. This is where they are. They're worse off defensively with Herrera behind the plate. I think it is something that they can work on and try and improve, but it's one of those improvements that has to happen in the offseason. This is not going to be one of those where it is snap your fingers, close your eyes, and click your heels, and boom, he's all of a sudden going to be able to throw a guy out at second base on pop time. This is something that's going to have to be progressed through the offseason, and they worked on him in the offseason. I think he looks better compared to what we saw, 2 years ago when he made a debut, better at blocking, better at pitch framing based on what we saw early on. They clearly think he's better at calling a game compared to when he was first called up in 2022. So he's slowly making these progressions. I think he can still get to a point where he can throw out base runners, but it's obvious right now that is not going to be a plus in his game this season. That's why they so desperately need Willson Contreras back. And I think it's just arm strength. Like, I just looked this up. The Willson Contreras pop time isn't necessarily all that great, but he's got a cannon of an arm that makes up for it.
So we just talked about his value, Willson Contreras, at the plate. One of the guys that's supposed to be your big bat right now is Paul Goldschmidt. And he's been better, guys. It's almost a month stretch right now. It's about 100 plate appearances. Since May 12th, he had that home run against the Brewers. And I was like, okay, maybe this can be the start of something. And it really has been. He's been a lot better. He's been a really solid hitter. Since May 12th against the Brewers, Paul Goldschmidt is batting .275, and he has an OPS of .835. He has 5 home runs in those 22 games. This is like really solid 5-hole hitter production that you're getting out of Paul Goldschmidt. My question to you, Alex, because it's a lot better. He was one of the worst hitters in Major League Baseball, and now he's been a well above league average hitter. League average this year is 700 OPS. He's at an 840. What does it mean for the Cardinals if this is who he is? He's not going to get significantly better, potentially, but he continues at this pace. What does that do for this team?
I think you're a 500 team. I think you're, at best, a team that could be maybe a couple of games over 500, but you're a third wild card team that, at best, is a little above 500. Because
what needs to happen for that to change if this is who Goldie is?
You have to get somebody who's an MVP caliber player. You got to have at least one of those guys in the lineup. And whether it's Goldschmidt, whether it's Arenado, which none of us believe is going to happen, or it's just Willson Contreras getting back in the lineup and playing like he was before he got hurt. You got to have somebody who has that ceiling that's one of the best right now in the game. And if Paul Goldschmidt is this, it's good. Your team can win games like we're seeing, but I don't think there's anything to get excited about because you're at best a little over 500.
Yeah, I think if he plays like this, you can have a 1-2 threat in your lineup, which you need. I think you have. I argue that you need 3 impact bats, and Gorman can be that. But the problem with Gorman is, as we've seen this season, he goes through such massive swings, it's hard to rely on him to be that bat for a full season, let alone when you get to the playoffs, if you get to the playoffs. But I think if you're getting this from Paul Goldschmidt and Contreras comes back and swings the bat, kind of like he did before he broke his arm, then yeah, you've got a 1-2 punch in your lineup, and you should be able to put some consistent games where it is no longer a struggle to get to 3 runs. Once you have a middle of the order that you can rely on, boom, now you've got a lineup that should be 1 through 5 deep because you'll still have Burley at the top, you'll get Newbar back at some point, Wynn's getting on base. You now got 2 impact bats. Their issue right now is they just don't really have anybody that's behind Goldschmidt except for when Gorman is hitting, and he's gone through a hot stretch, and what happens when he goes through a hot stretch? They're playing pretty good baseball.
I know BK's not going to like this, but he's hitting 173 with runners in scoring position. And, I don't think that's a middle-of-the-order bat.
Over the entirety of the season,
Mm-hmm.
Paul Goldschmidt is?
Yeah. He's got 9 hits and 52 at-bats with runners in scoring position.
It's not good.
That's not to me, that's a 5-hole hitter. And if that's, you're telling me, what we've got right now is best, and I know a lot of that is probably skewed because it was so bad at the beginning, but still, even for how good he's been, 9 hits and 52 at-bats, that's a 5-hole hitter. Nolan Arenado, who's actually one of your best with runners in scoring position.
Weird, he exclusively hits when there's runners on.
But
if you don't have a runner on base, he might as well be a free out for the opposition.
So, you could argue, because he's doing that, he's a 4-hole hitter, especially when you've got guys. But, you don't have a middle-of-the-order bat right now, even if Goldschmidt's hitting this well.
If you combine all of the good stuff that Arenado and Goldie have done this year,
MVP.
It creates one really good player. Goldie has been, especially over the last month, basically, just a really solid all-around hitter. over the last month, Arenado has not been that, but he's been pretty clutch. He's coming up in those big situations a decent amount for them. If you combine the two, all right, now we're really talking about something that can be usable in the middle of your order. For what it's worth, I gave you the numbers on what Paul Goldschmidt has been in the last month. He's like an 840-ish OPS. For context on what that means, like guys that actually were in that range last year, that's Ozzy Albies, Adolis Garcia, Jose Ramirez, Christian Walker, Brandon Nimmo, Marcus Semien. Those are guys that are right in that 840-ish OPS range. I think we would all consider them to be middle of the order bats from a year ago. Yeah. So I think you can live with this. I think you can get by with it, but it requires Willson Contreras to get back. And it requires him to be the kind of hitter that he was early in the season. And honestly, I think it requires Jordan Walker to be the hitter that we expected him to be this year, not the one that we saw earlier on. If they can get all of those things, a lot to ask, I think you can be a contender. And it requires the National League to not pull away from you before those things happen. A lot of ifs, a lot of maybes, a lot of buts. But if all those things happen, you can still be a good team.
Man, put that hat on, VK.
Let's give me that damn whistle. We're back aboard.
Yeah, we're aboard the what-if train.
That was
the mall train.
We're all aboard the what-if train. Boy, when all of this clicks, we're going to be great.
I miss when the Cardinals were really fun and interesting, man.
That was like when I was a 12-year-old. Like, boy, when puberty hits, I'm going to look awesome.
Funny
Never
thing
worked.
is, like, I would think like that's the 2022 season, you know, when we were having fun. And man, I remember them, but they weren't that great because Albert wasn't hitting yet in 2022 at this point in the year.
Boy, when I get a full-time job, I'm going to start exercising more.
They were interesting,
That's what I
though.
said, too.
Early on in 2022, at this point in 2022, they were, let's see here, 34 and 26, 8 games above 500. So they were like a really solid team at this point.
They were a good team, and it was odd because, like, at that point, you really only had, 2 guys hitting? I think it was Goldie and Arenado. Now, granted, they were playing at MVP levels.
Now, you want to talk about bad baseball. That was 2021, around this time of the year. You remember that? That was when the Cardinals were on Sunday Night Baseball, and I will never forget it. Tim Kirkjian was on the broadcast and said, Cardinals fans are really smart. They know what they're watching, and this is bad baseball. And when Tim Kirkjian is saying that on the broadcast, you know things have gone horribly wrong for the Cardinals. They couldn't throw strikes, dude. They had lost like 10 out of 12 or something like that.
I think that's a Mike Schilt problem.
They went from being 30 and 22 on May 29th to 32 and 33 on June 13th. Over a 2-week stretch, they won exactly 2 baseball games. It was brutal.
Where are those Cardinals fans at? Because they're watching bad baseball again, and yet they're telling me that I'm too negative. What's up with that, Cardinals Nation? This team stinks, too.
Hey, man, you should just get on board with being called negative.
They started the month of June 7 games above 500 and ended the month of June 2 games below.
Wow, that is brutal.
Yeah, it was not ideal. All right, coming up next, there's a ranking that just came out yesterday on the best NFL head coaches. Where does Andy Reid rank on this list? And where's our biggest disagreement on this list, Alex? We'll get into that coming up next here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, you know what that music means. It is time for some NFL quick hitters. And Alex, there was a list. You know I love some lists.
I love lists.
Is the best. Over on USA Today's NFL page yesterday, ranking the best and worst head coaches in the NFL. Their top 5 was as follows. You ready for this, Alex? Number 1, Andy Reid.
Wrong.
Number 2, Sean McVay.
Wrong.
Whoa.
Number 3, Mike Tomlin. Number 4, Kyle Shanahan. And number 5, Matt LaFleur of the Green Bay Packers. Alex, that is the top 5. I'm going to open this up for discussion now. Do you have a significant disagreement with anything that exists inside of that top 5 ranking?
Yes. I have a significant disagreement, if that's okay with everybody.
Don't tell me who you would put into the top 5 yet, but what is your guy that you would drop down?
Number 3. I don't believe Mike Tomlin. If we're doing this is the best head coaches now in the NFL, I don't think Mike Tomlin is there. I get and everybody's argument that's going to start flowing in is he's had a crap team, Alex. He's a good head coach.
They're 500 all the time.
Fine. But you're
I've
500.
not had a losing season in 18 years.
And if we're going tenure, I would say he's top 3. But I can already name 2 head coaches that are better than Mike Tomlin right now that should be in that position. Or even if you want to move somebody up into that position, I've got 2 guys that should be ahead of Mike Tomlin right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. I would bump Mike Tomlin from my top 5.
I would too.
I
love Mike Tomlin. I think Tomlin is a clear-cut no doubt about a top 10 coach. I do
Yeah.
not think he should be in the top 5 right now.
It's impressive that he hasn't had a losing season, but it's like, am I supposed to be impressed with 500? You know, it's like what the Cardinals are right now. Am I supposed to be impressed that you're like...
Well, he makes the playoff every year.
I think it
kinda
is
there.
worth noting, though, that he's done that with bad quarterback play, which is
I get it.
a nightmare. Like, trying to win with bad quarterback play is damn near impossible, and
I'd
Tomlin
also-
finds a way to do it every year.
It's going to sound weird to say this. I think that's also a detriment to that organization as a whole.
I agree.
Like, they need a reset, and Mike Tomlin is just sitting there going, we're 500, baby, and we are picking 15.
Yeah, they're a Cardinals front office where they're like, hey, we made the playoffs. We're good.
Yeah, and like they need a complete reset. They need to go find the franchise quarterback. And I understand they tried that with Pickett. Clearly it failed. Time to reset everything.
I would say the reason why I'm lower on Tomlin than this list is because I have John Harbaugh higher. I view John Harbaugh
Just say
and
Harbaugh.
Mike Tomlin very similarly, but I would rather have John Harbaugh because I've seen the ceiling with that more recently than I have with Mike Tomlin. Some of that is a totally fair retort. If anybody threw this in on the text line right now at 314-399-9646, well, what would Mike Tomlin do if he had, Lamar Jackson as his quarterback? Would he be having the success that the Ravens have? And if he flipped the quarterback situations, would we be talking about this basically vice versa? Possible, but I've seen Harbaugh do it. Harbaugh took Lamar Jackson and said, I'm going to change my entire offensive system to fit this guy. That's good coaching, man. Every other team in the league had an opportunity to take Lamar, and they all said no. Harbaugh said, you know what? It's worth it. It's worth the risk, and we're going to build our team around this guy. And he's done it, and he's been one of the most successful teams in the NFL ever since because he was willing to do that. John Harbaugh, in my opinion, he's at 6th on this list. I would have him 3rd behind the 2 guys, behind Andy Reid, and I would actually flip Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan.
I would too.
I would have Shanahan 2, Harbaugh 3 on my list of the top 3 coaches in the NFL. Alex, I know you had something else that stood out to you, though.
Yeah. Dan Campbell being number 8 is pure trash, and this list is a joke because of it. I mean, you're talking about a guy that went from a Matt Patricia-led team that was bad his first year. I will not deny it, but you're a really good coach if in one season you go from 3-13 to 9-8 and then 12-5. In 3 seasons, Dan Campbell being 8th is trash. He should be... And I can't make the argument to put him into top 5 because as much as I don't think Matt LaFleur is there, I can't deny what he's done since 2019. Like, you've gotten first place in I think all but 1 season, and you just did it without Aaron Rodgers. But he should be 6th. If we're moving Harbaugh up and Tomlin down, Dan Campbell should be above Mike Tomlin because in 3 seasons, he accomplished something with a bad roster that got better than what Mike Tomlin did pretty much the last 5 seasons.
Yeah, I would argue to put him at 5. I think he is a better head coach than LaFleur, not by much, but I do think he is.
What LaFleur did last year was so impressive to me. So impressive.
I agree, and that's why I'd hear an argument on either one of these guys being 5, 6. I would choose Dan Campbell. Now, I do think that he is the type of coach that everybody loves his persona of we are going for it on fourth down.
Love it.
You know, that's a man after my heart.
I love that man.
Coach,
I
if
love
I've
that
ever
man.
heard one.
He's like Madden every day of the week.
Him, though, on this list. When you look at that, he's the kind of coach that you love when it is going right for them and they are converting on these fourth downs. He's also the kind of coach that loses you a football game. Like, let's just call it how it is.
And John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh is the same stuff, dude. He is less aggressive than Dan Campbell because Dan Campbell is a madman. But he also does some of those things. I love me some Dan Campbell, Alex. I probably wouldn't have him necessarily as high as you do, but I would have him right on the outside of the top 5. He's in that Mike Tomlin range for me. Other notables. Mike McDaniel, number 15 on this list. Nick Sirianni at number 18 on the list. And the bottom 3 coaches in the NFL, according to USA Today, the worst in the NFL, Dennis Allen with the New Orleans Saints. I always forget that he's their head coach. Matt Eberflus with the Chicago Bears. That feels a little low to me.
Yeah.
I liked what we saw from him in the back half of last season. I
think he rises up this year.
I also wonder if, I say this as a Justin Fields fan, I wonder if we just overvalue what Justin Fields is, and maybe looking back, we're going to be like, man, he did pretty well with the guy that nobody else in the NFL valued as an NFL starting quarterback, and he was able to win games with that guy behind center.
Especially if he loses out against Justin. Is he on the same team as Russell Wilson?
Mm-hmm.
So if he loses out to Russell Wilson, that kind of tells you exactly what we're talking about.
Makes me wonder how people are going to look at Matt Nagy moving forward as well.
Yeah.
That was his quarterback, and he did not have success there, no doubt about it, but maybe 5 years from now, we look back at it and say, man, he got a crap situation. He had Andy Dalton, he had Justin Fields, and he had Mitch Trubisky. I wonder who was going to work in that spot. All right, and then the third worst coach in the NFL, according to this list, is Gerard Mayo. That's just one of those where I don't know how I could possibly tell you whether he's a good or a bad
I feel like he should be off the list for that.
I am genuinely shocked that Robert Saleh didn't finish last, because that's who I would argue is the worst coach. I loved what he did as a defensive coordinator, but, man, watching what he did in New York, and look, I understand he had Zach Wilson for basically his whole tenure as a head coach. Dude, the way he's handled the media, the way he's handled defending Zach Wilson, I get to an extent you have to do it. Dude, that's not a franchise quarterback. You had to get away from him starting at quarterback as soon as possible, and some of his decision-making's been terrible.
But we put Mike Tomlin in the top 5 because he's done it with crap quarterbacks. I'm not going to defend a guy like you had Zach Wilson and you couldn't figure it out. So I'm with T-Bone.
Yeah, I just look at the way Saleh has handled everything in New York, and I just feel like he's terrible as a head coach. He's a perfect defensive coordinator, not a head coach.
Where was Brian Dable?
So that's the thing that I was about to bring up. Brian Dable's 29th behind Robert Saleh.
Yeah,
I think Brian Dable's a good coach.
I do too.
I think he got a crap situation.
Got the team to the playoffs.
He made Daniel Jones so good, so quickly, that the Giants were like, we got to pay the guy. Give him $40 million a year immediately.
To the playoffs.
How can I immediately, for one season where Daniel Jones got hurt, I'm now supposed to say the guy stinks now? He might be a tough person to work with. He might have a little bit of BK in him where people get to work with him for like a month, and they're like, I don't want to be here anymore. His defensive coordinator essentially said, yo, I am out. I want no part of being here any longer. So that is something you probably have to take into account with something like this, but I think him being that low on the list is totally unfair. He should be like towards the middle of the pack, in my opinion.
I'm with you.
I think that's probably more the range. I would have Mike McCarthy also way lower on this list.
Oh, yeah, Mike McCarthy should be bottom 5.
He's 22nd on this list. I would have him 31st. I think he's a bottom 3 coach in the NFL. I think he actively makes his team worse, and I think the Dallas Cowboys would have been better if they had just your middle-of-the-pack head coach over the last few seasons.
Bring Todd Bowles with him. Todd Bowles not a very good coach either.
Yeah, that's another really good one.
He did coach Tampa Bay Buccaneers to a Super Bowl. Tom Brady also had a decent amount to do with that.
He wasn't the coach of that team, wasn't that Bruce Arians?
Yeah, that was the Arians.
He was the DC.
Todd Bowles has been...
Todd Bowles was the head coach of that.
Let's be honest. Any head coach on that Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, it was Tom Brady.
Tom Brady was the head coach. It's like being the head coach of the LA Lakers. And Dan Hurley, this is why you shouldn't take the job. LeBron's coaching that team, man.
It's fine. LeBron won't be around forever.
I also forgot Bruce Arians was their head coach at that point in time. It's just
that's what this was.
Forgettable.
That's what this was.
Came out of retirement for that job.
Totally forgot that he was back with that team. All right, with Alex T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, the Cardinals aren't taking advantage of their opportunities against these losing teams on their schedule. How do they compare with other teams against teams with losing records? We'll tell you next here on 101 ESPN.
Terry Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals fell to the Rockies last night 3-2. They'll be back in action tonight. 7:15 will be first pitch. Austin Gomber gets to start for Colorado. Lance Lynn will get the start for the St. Louis Cardinals. And tomorrow night here on 101 ESPN, we've got Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals for you between the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers. We'll have pregame coverage starting tomorrow night at 6:30. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alex is mad. He's big mad. I'm not surprised by this, but I wanted to let that out there before we get into this segment. Alex, the Cardinals are not taking advantage of their opportunities against poor opponents. We saw this against the White Sox. That's the series you've been latching on to. They lose 2 out of 3, and it made you big mad. And ever since then, you got yourself off of the train. You're not buying in with me. I'm the conductor of this thing. And you said, I want no part of it.
And don't forget the Detroit one, too.
And then yesterday, you end up losing against Colorado. You in Detroit, man, they're still a fine team. They're not like the White Sox.
They're above 500. They're better than us.
Sure. They're fine.
Sure.
But yesterday, that's a bad team. Losing against Colorado was unacceptable. Alex, what are you seeing here? What is your takeaway from the way that the Cardinals have performed against below 500 opponents?
It's what's keeping me away from this team, because when you should be pouncing on these other teams, you don't. And it's been a trend all season long. And frankly, it was a trend last year, too, to where you take those underperforming teams and you're like, oh, man, this team can't pick up victories. Now, in the early portion of the season, like you took care of business. You beat the Marlins. You beat the Diamondbacks. You beat the Mets. And those were teams that were just like you. You beat the Athletics. But then something changed for this team to where it all started falling apart. And even those wins, I'm sorry, but it just didn't feel like they were very convincing. You had to win them by scoring 3 runs or 2 runs. And then you've gone in this stretch in the month of May to where you lost the series against the Mets. Yes, you beat the Angels, but can I be honest, you were gifted that 1 win and you lost another.
Yeah, but that's what it is to play against bad teams.
I completely understand that, but that's why I can't buy into this team. I'm not saying they're the worst team in Major League Baseball, but because you can't go out there and dominate against these opponents that are worse than you, hence last night against the Rockies, I look at it as you're an average team and you can beat some average teams, but when you take on the superior opponents, and I understand what everyone's going to come back with, the Orioles, it's 1 series. But when you take on the superior opponents, they wipe the floor with you.
They feel like, I know the numbers don't necessarily fully support this notion. They feel very bluesy. And what I mean by that is you play against the teams that are good baseball teams. Like Baltimore's a very good team. And I understand that right now it looks like a one-off, but they played very well against them. Boston had a great pitching staff, and they played well against them. And I don't remember who else they beat in that homestand, but they've played some good teams, and they've held their own against them. But the problem is now that they're playing some of these lower teams, it's not that the fact that they're not winning. Like last night, they may take 3 or 4 from Colorado. Hell, they should take 3 or 4 from Colorado. The problem is one, I understand that some games should be gifted to you because they are bad teams, but it feels like all the games are too close for comfort, you know? Like last night, never really felt like you were in that game, and you're playing Colorado. Like, these should be the games where you start to see the offense start clicking, where you start to see the offense start hitting. These are where these blowout games that we talked about earlier this week, apparently, that I forgot about. These are the times where you should see the Cardinals winning 7-2, 5-0, 6-1. And it's not. It's very much along the lines of, okay, they're kind of hanging around, or the Cardinals do get up to a big lead, and then for whatever reason, the pitching goes awry, like in the LA series where it was, they scored, I think it was like 10 runs, they end up winning the game like 10-8, and it's not convincing. Like, these have to be series where it should be, I can write in pen, the Cardinals will take 3 or 4 from the Colorado Rockies. And I have to question if they're going to take 3 or 4 from the Colorado Rockies because their offense just does not blow teams out.
Yeah, so this year, just to give the numbers, you guys know I'm the nerd. I'm going to go ahead and give the fact-based evidence, and we can get into the discussion from there. The Cardinals are 20-18 when facing teams that are 500 or worse on the season. 20-18. For context on that, that is the 20th best winning percentage in Major League Baseball. which is roughly where the Cardinals are at overall in terms of where they're at in Major League Baseball. Teams that are similar, the Arizona Diamondbacks, they're 24-21 in those games. The Cubs, they're 21-20 in those games. The Nationals are 1 game below 500. The Padres are 4 games below 500. In other words, the teams that are in the National League wildcard race. They're all the same, dude. All of these teams. And so, like, we can pick apart individual pieces of the Cardinals' resume and be like, they're not good. And you're right. Like, I think we're all in agreement on who the Cardinals are at this point. I don't feel a lot of disagreement, whether it's via the text line or the YouTube chat or in this room. Like, even on the 4 shows that you hear throughout the day here on 101 ESPN, from Randy Carricker in the mornings with that show to Anthony Stalter and the guys on the afternoon show. I think everybody agrees, generally speaking, on who the Cardinals are, where they're at, what the quality of this team is. I think where the discussion really happens is, what does that mean? Where does that rank now in terms of this National League? And what does it matter as to where they're at in the race right now in the National League? Because that, to me, is where I then go with is, okay, so you're not a very good baseball team. You're like really quite average in every possible way. And that might be good enough this year to get you into the playoffs. But I think the pushback that we'll get on the text line, Alex, about that, and maybe the pushback that I'll get from you as well, yeah, but I've seen that before. I don't want to be that team that just gets in anymore. And that's fair. It's a fair pushback. But I think that's where we're at with the Cardinals, is just what value do you place on just getting into the playoffs and then seeing what you can do once you get in there? That's for the next 4 months. That's going to be the conversation about the 2024 St. Louis Cardinals.
And that's what I felt like the Phillies series did for me. And everybody said I was Debbie Downer that morning that afternoon when we talked, but they just solidified who they were. You're a team that's probably going to get a playoff spot because everybody besides the Braves are terrible in the National League wildcard race. But you know what it did for me? It showed me that when you get into a wildcard spot, you're going to get bounced. You're going to get swept. And I understand that, anything can happen in the playoffs, but we've been saying that for the last 4 years of just get in and anything can happen, and you were beat. There's no upside there. Getting into the playoffs, great, but when you get wiped away in 2 games, what's there to get excited about?
Yeah, here's the part that I feel like I'm coming into because, I totally agree that A, this team stinks, and B, the whole NL stinks. But the problem is I don't feel like there's much upside this year. And that is whether you want to look at the rotation and say, well, they should have improved that better in the offseason, which, look, their offseason was looking like an A+ so far. Like, Mo deserves a lot of credit for what he did in the offseason. Otherwise, this team would be where they were last year. But the problem for me is, like in years prior, thinking back to the last couple of runs, like 2021, like it was hard to see how they went on a deep run, but at least there was a lot of excitement around the team because they came in hot, and we've seen that before, where the team that gets to the playoffs that is hot goes on a deep run. Hell, it happened in the last 2 postseasons. 2022, you had a legitimate middle-of-the-order. Miles Michaelis pitching well and Montgomery pitching well at that point in the season, and Jose Quintana. 2023 happens, they missed the playoffs. This year, even if they make the playoffs, I don't feel good about this team at all. The offense to me is bad. They cannot improve the offense at the trade deadline significantly enough to make it to where it is a weapon again.
Can I be honest? I'll just, on that point, though, real quick, I think they can. But it's via internal options. Like, Willson Contreras can significantly change the look of this offense. And if you get Jordan Walker back, I know that people are out on him right now. If you get Jordan Walker back and he does what he did last year, like nothing more, nothing less, just he is the same player that he was last year, your offense is pretty good.
But you didn't have Walker, but you had Contreras, and he was your best bat at the beginning of the season.
But
and
you
still
point,
stunk.
Paul Goldschmidt was terrible. Alec Burleson wasn't playing as much and wasn't hitting the way that he is right now. And I'm not suggesting that Burleson's going to be amazing all year long. But even if he's just like an 800 OPS guy, that has the chance to be a pretty good offense. It's not on the level of the Dodgers or the Braves or the Phillies, but that's a pretty good offense. That is the one place that I'll disagree with.
I just can't buy into all of those things clicking at once when Contreras comes back. Because, again, this Cardinals team, when one thing's going well, the other thing breaks. And if Contreras comes back and is hitting well, I fully expect Burleson and Gorman to all go quiet. And now we're talking about complementary pieces again.
It's hard for me to argue the other side.
Yeah,
I hear you on that, and it's a reasonable opinion to have, and I think it's probably where a lot of Cardinals fans are right now. Can we do a mean tweets real quick?
Are we going to do it towards you?
Cardinals?
It's not on the Cardinals.
Oh.
Who are we taking a shot at?
Well, we had a text a little bit earlier. Guys, it's about the leadership. They don't have a manager that can get them out of this.
Like
just
Mike
imagine if they had Mike Schultz.
Wow.
Just imagine
the last
if the
time
Cardinals
they did.
had Mike Schultz leading this ship. They absolutely would not right now be 32-34, 2 games below 500, coming off of a sweep at the hands of the LA Angels on the road. Except that's exactly where the San Diego Padres are right now, currently in 3rd place in the wild card standings, and Padres fans are done with him. Let's go ahead and play a game of mean tweets real quick.
Oh, yeah. It's high school all over again, crying in my Ford Tempo.
From
Ford
E.S.
Tempo.
Smith, SD.
Oh.
Holy bleep. Listening to Mike Schilt is infuriating.
That's true.
I guess he said scratch and claw.
From @CoPadres on Twitter. Mike Schilt would absolutely punt on 4th and 1 from the opponent's 38-yard line.
Yeah. Got to go with the smart stuff
That's
here.
a Sean McVay move if I've ever seen one.
From @Colby, not Kobe. The Padres are starting to play like the Chargers, and Mike Schilt is starting to feel like Norv Turner. At least the team is full of gamers, though.
Yeah.
Are they?
From @BushLeagueBlake.
Balake.
Mike Schilt give a reliever a full clean inning challenge. He would fail. From @MasonYourFace. I summarily reject the idea that Mike Schilt knows more than me about baseball at this point.
That's a BK tweet if I've ever heard one.
Been there, done
Don't
that. It
question
didn't
him,
go
though.
well.
Brandon.
From @RyanPayne32. Wait, I thought Mike Schilt had a reputation for a fundamentals-oriented approach. Haven't seen that this year. Oof. From @KingPouncy. The Mike Schilt is the cool guy in the room act is played out. Baseball is a results-driven business. Can I please see some results? #Padres.
Man, it is going well in SD.
This one brings back some memories. From Isaac with 3 S's, 3 A's, and 3 C's.
Jeez.
Now the media is going to ask Mike Schilt a simple, valid question, and he's going to be a you-know-what about it. Over him already. This team's terrible.
Is that your burner account? Did you start a burner account for Mike Schilt tweets?
Did he not bring in the closer up 4 again?
Well, you know we got to celebrate when Matt Carpenter does
And
things.
last one here. This is from @lights_out619. The worst part about this loss is going to be the post-game comments from Mike Schilt, where he becomes combative with reporters and acts like nothing is wrong with his team. At this point, I'd just rather have Jace Tingler back.
Oh, he was
wow.
real bad.
Wow.
Boys,
Poor Schilty.
I don't think Padres fans are thrilled with their managing situation either.
Man.
That brings back some
Yeah, I was going to say, I actually get it. Take out a 17-game win streak, and I think we're feeling different about Mike Schilt here in St. Louis.
Nah, I'm sure it would have been fine. He's Alex. That's
Brandon.
T-Bone on BK. The Junk Drawer coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Boys, I think the biggest upset, potentially, since the Miracle on Ice took place yesterday. Did you see this? A stunner in the Cricket World Cup. Did you see what took place yesterday, Alex?
No, I did not.
The USA upset international powerhouse Pakistan yesterday in cricket. Now, the man that is the best player on the U.S. cricket team, what do you think his day job is?
I saw this. What was it? Wasn't it like an engineer or something?
He's an engineer at Oracle.
Unbelievable.
Yesterday, I saw this story, Alex, and I thought to myself, maybe T-Bone's right. Maybe T-Bone is actually one of the greatest baseball players, ping pong players, tennis players that we've ever seen.
Yeah, you sure?
And we're the one that are holding him back.
What did you walk into the office today and tell Ryder? You walked in today and you said something. I'm like, geez, what is with this inner confidence that you have?
You guys were talking about why you remember like random numbers.
Yeah.
And I'll always remember my basketball jersey.
Yeah.
Because I wore 24. And at first when I got the number, I didn't know what it was. So then I looked up NBA players that wore 24. And then I started to go with, I can play like Kobe.
He said his teammates called him Kobe Bryant. And then the next year they changed his jersey to 11 and sat him on the bench.
Then I got 11 and got benched.
Yeah, this inner confidence that this kid has is unbelievable.
It all dates back. Now we know the origin story.
Yeah.
The chick
T-Bone's
magnet.
origin story is that he wore the number 24, and that's when he knew whether it's basketball or soccer, tennis, baseball, he can hit Ryan Helsley's 102-mile-per-hour fastball, as we know.
Beat anybody in table
Jamie
tennis?
said yesterday that he could do it.
Hit Ryan Helsley's fastball?
Yeah.
What is happening right now?
I believe it. He was a
I'm
hockey
baffled by
defenseman that got to have hand-eye coordination to play hockey, so I believe he could touch
I
it.
think we're underestimating what a 100-mile-an-hour fastball looks like.
No, man, you can time.
You know
can
how
learn
big
to
the bat
time
is,
it.
right? It's not that big.
The thing that I say about it is because it doesn't have movement. You know, it's not like a curveball where it's spinning. You can, if it's straight, you can time it.
I just like.
T-Bone, have you ever played pickleball?
Yeah. I'm not a fan. I like tennis better.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought because if he thinks he can beat an Olympic ping pong player,
Pickleball
I figured
should be
maybe
easy.
you'd be a good pickleball player.
Yeah. I've played it. I am good at it. I don't know how great I am at it, but I'm good at it because I played tennis. But I prefer to play tennis more than I do.
I hate anything with a racket and a ball. Everything tennis, ping pong, pickleball.
Tennis is more of a sport of endurance.
Racquetball, I
Granted,
played.
now is a little tougher.
I was supposed to say that going well for you, buddy.
Yeah.
Not now. Now I need to win with power. But when I played in college and in high school, I basically was the guy that like dragged out a game. I was historically known for always being the last one to finish their game because it took me forever.
So apparently yesterday on the fast lane, the guy said that they could hit a fair ball out of 100 pitches at 103.
A fair ball?
Yeah, they believe they could put one in play if they were given 100 opportunities to do so.
I wasn't even that confident. I just said make contact with it.
I think all of that is incorrect.
Yeah. I think I could.
I think we are all underestimating how fast 103 miles an hour
But
is.
after a moment of like, if you do I'm trying to think of like a good example of this. If you do anything that is like timing wise, over time you start to see it and learn and figure out how to adjust
something
to it.
simple, not hit 103 miles an hour.
I've hit 90 before. So not throwing, but hitting a 90-mile-an-hour ball out of a cage where you can see the release point.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
You can time up 100.
You mean the point where there's a red flashing dot that basically
that
tells you a ball is coming?
No, you see it come in and
That's it. Hey, 3, 2, 1.
You
Here
can
comes
time
the ball.
You could hit Ryan Helsley.
Sure you
now
can.
he starts throwing in his curveball and slider, you're done.
How are you making contact when he's pitching you high and inside?
We would put rules on that.
No, there's no rules on it, man.
Helsley hits me, he owes me like a grand.
You're saying
it's like a $10,000 fine.
You're saying you can hit 103 miles an hour fastball from Ryan Helsley. There's no rules you place on
I can't
this.
believe this is still a real conversation. You're doubling down on it.
Speaking of, I believe I can do it.
Apparently, there's more people that think they can do it.
Speaking of like cricket, where we started this conversation, I have no idea how to play. I don't know the rules. I would love to try it sometime though.
Yeah, I've tried to watch and I don't understand. Like it feels like baseball, but it's
Watching
not baseball.
those guys in baseball, there's a batter's box and there's like a strike zone.
But they have to
there's
hit it
like
off of the bounce.
Yeah, but there's like 3, I don't even know what they're called, so I don't want to say the wrong word. It looks like sticks poking out of the ground. Those guys, they get ready to throw the ball, and these guys get like these massive running starts, and then these batters, they stand in front of the sticks.
And the games take like 7 days.
Yeah.
Like that.
I'm out, man. I'm out.
Somebody said that the odds were about 7-1, by the way, yesterday.
I saw they were
for the U.S. to
which
win.
makes sense considering like their best
Should
player
have laid
is
some money on it.
engineer.
That's roughly the odds of the Mavericks to come back to win this series against the Celtics. So winning the next 4 games for Dallas is roughly the equivalent of Team USA winning yesterday. So USA. They beat Pakistan in cricket. Congratulations to them. Good job by their best player, who is an engineer by trade.
That reminds me of in the World Baseball Classic. I think it was the Czech Republic, their first ever time, and a guy that was I don't remember I think he was a teacher or a firefighter, struck out Shohei Ohtani.
Love it.
They got killed by Japan, but dude, you strike out Shohei Ohtani, hats off. Good for
the
you.
rest of your life. That will be the moment that
You should frame
never
that.
one up. For Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, who is the best team in their respective league in recent years without a title? I think that Boston probably holds that title, no pun intended, right now in the NBA. Who are the other teams in pro sports that are in that same range? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK. So, Alex, I find it interesting because the Boston Celtics now have been to the Eastern Conference Finals in 7 of the last 8 years, rather. Since 2017, they went yes, no, yes. They consistently are getting deep into the postseason every single year. You know how many times they've won the NBA Finals?
How many?
Since 2017? 0.
Oh.
If they do it this year, it'll be the first, despite them getting deep into the playoffs on a year-in, year-out basis. If they do not win it this year, and if this core group of players does not end up getting to and winning an NBA Finals at some point during their prime, I would bet against this, but if Tatum doesn't, if Jaylen Brown doesn't, if those guys don't get it done, it's going to go down as one of the most shocking failures of a core that was never able to quite get to the mountaintop in recent sports memory. So I wanted to have a conversation with you because I do think they're going to end this drought this year. I think they're going to end up beating the Dallas Mavericks. They're going to win the finals this year. They're already up 1-0. They won last night. That game was over by the end of the first quarter. They were up by like 20 at the end of the first quarter. Alex, who are the other teams that are in this conversation right now? Because Boston is there based on the fact that they're consistently getting to the Eastern Conference Finals or deeper. This is their second finals in the last 3 years as well. Who else in pro sports over the last 20 years, 15 years, would you say fits into this criteria?
I mean, the first one that comes to mind for me is Buffalo Bills. Like, they're the first one that comes to mind of thinking, and I know they haven't gotten to the Super Bowl that many times, that damn Mahomes cheating, but they are a team that's built to have Super Bowl success for what feels like the last 5-6 seasons, and it's been shortcomings every single season.
By one guy.
Yeah.
It's like you're right there, and the
It was
best
like
team
Paul
in the
George
world.
with the Pacers when he'd always run into LeBron. It's like, man, this team's really good. And then it's like, damn it, Miami's still in the playoffs.
Honestly, the Dallas Cowboys feel a little like this, but not so much.
I think there's a different team in the NFC that I would
Is
want.
there?
San Fran.
Yep.
Oh, okay. That's a really good one.
Dude, San Francisco lost the Super Bowl in 2019, lost the Super Bowl this year, and lost in the conference finals the previous 2 seasons.
Yeah.
4 of the last 5 years, they've at least made it to the NFC Championship game. They have exactly 0 titles as a result.
Yeah, that'll do it to you.
That's hard, man.
That'll do it to you.
I think the Baltimore Ravens are somewhere in this range, but they're probably closer to what you're talking about with the Cowboys, where they are consistently one of the best teams in the regular season, but they never seem to have success in the playoffs, and that's what's different. Like, San Fran is probably the closest thing that we have in another sport to what Boston has done, where they're not just getting deep into the playoffs, they're actually getting to the title. And then they lose. Yeah. And they're just like one step away from hoisting a Lombardi trophy, and they're not able to get it done. Who's the baseball team?
I'm
the best corollary for this right
it's
now.
the Dodgers.
They're the only team I can think of, and I know that's weird to say.
2020
didn't count.
That's the whole reason that I think they fall into this conversation is that was a weird, wonky season.
Yeah.
Full 162, man, they've never gotten over the mountaintop.
With incredible teams that have like the highest salary you can ask for, and they struggle every single year.
They've had to change out the core to try and win a World Series. Like, Betts and Freeman have not done it so far. We'll see if they can do it now that they've added Ohtani. But you think of the core prior to that, Seager and Bellinger, yes, they won the 2020 World Series, but that core never really got it. And they got to the World Series and lost in back-to-back years in 2017 and in 2018. I think they're the only team that really fits into this category because they've been so close. They are the Houston Astros of the NL, except they don't have the World Series to show for it.
In hockey, the one that two that come to mind, one's playing in the Stanley Cup final, and I think Edmonton falls into this if they lose in the Stanley Cup. Now, I know they haven't been here before, but you're talking about since 21-22, conference final loss, second round loss, and then now you're in the Stanley Cup final. But you talk about a core that's been 2 of the best players in the game since 2016, and you've struggled. The other one in hockey, the Dallas Stars. Since 2018, second round loss, Stanley Cup lost, first round loss, conference final loss, conference final loss.
That's the
That's the team
for the NHL.
That's the team that I think you look at and you say, like, you missed it. You missed your opportunity to hoist multiple Stanley Cups.
Somebody on the text line said the Rays would be a good comparison for this. I think that the problem with the Rays is that they only got there. They only even got close once. They got to the World Series in 2020. Of course, lost.
Fake
we
year.
Remember what happened there. You know, they had the whole pulling a pitcher out when they shouldn't have, and people got really mad at their manager. But other than that, they haven't made it to the ALCS. The only other time in the last 20 years that they've made it to the ALCS was 2008. They haven't gotten close enough. The same number of times like what we've seen with Boston. Philadelphia is strangely like on the verge of becoming the next version of this.
A couple years from now, if they do it again, they're going to be there.
Consistently a team that you go into the season, and this is where I think the closest comparison is for the Boston Celtics. Every year I feel like people go into the season with the Celtics, and they're like best team in the East. Deep, great players all across the board, good coaching. Like they've got everything you need, and they've got the assets to be able to go out there and get involved with whatever the biggest move is at that year's deadline or in that offseason. And they're expected perennially to be top contenders. That's Philly. That's the comparison for them. And if they don't end up getting one in the next couple of seasons, Philadelphia will be in Major League Baseball what Boston currently is in the NBA. It's just an interesting time, man, because this is their chance. I think this is their best chance to be able to get it. And if this series ends up turning, I don't expect it to. I think they're going to beat Dallas. I just think they're the better team. But if it turned and Dallas ends up coming back and winning this series, let's say in 7 games or something, we're going to look back at this as the year that should have been for the Boston Celtics. Because they had everything that you need, and there's about to be a change in the CBA where the taxpayers have significant limitations on what they're able to do. Jason Tatum's about to get like a $300 million contract from the Celtics. That's going to limit what they're able to do flexibility-wise because they'll have both him and Jaylen Brown under long-term big extensions, max money deals. So this is the year. They've got to get it done, and their path will never be easier than what it was this season because they didn't have to go through the best dudes. Everybody got hurt in the Eastern Conference this season.
What you're saying, it's funny how both final right now that we're getting are fall into that category because the Edmonton Oilers are in the exact same position. If Oilers lose this series, which I fully expect them to, this was the year that they could have done it, should have done it, and this is their best opportunity. You had 0 difficult opponents, it feels like, throughout the conference final, and then you get to the Stanley Cup final. You have everything you need. A cheap goaltender. You've got your guys that are in their prime. You've got depth. You traded for defense. You've got a young defensive stud. You've got everything. And if you lose in the Stanley Cup final, this was your best chance, and I don't know if Edmonton gets it back.
What to you? We got the Stanley Cup final beginning tomorrow. Panthers versus Oilers. We'll have game 1 right here on 101 ESPN. What to you is the biggest factor that will determine this Stanley Cup final?
I think special teams is going to determine this. And I know it feels like we say that all the time, but if you look at how Edmonton got to the Stanley Cup final, it's been exclusively their power play. Like, their top guys have dominated at the power play, and at even strength, there's no depth of scoring. At even strength, you've got 3 guys that are doing it. And the reason I think it's so critical in this one is because this can go two different ways. If Florida continues to play the way that they have been playing, and look, there will be more penalties called if Florida plays that way, because if you take a cross-check, if you look at Connor McDavid wrong, they're going to call a penalty. That limits the chance of Florida playing the way that gives them success and pushing teams to their limit to take bad penalties or to just be afraid to play them against. But if you do try and push the limit that way, that puts Edmonton with a 45% clip on the power play consistently, and I think that makes the series go away.
Man, this is my favorite kind of a matchup. It reminds me so much of like when you get into the NFL playoffs, like the Ravens versus the Chiefs, for example, right? It's that high-flying offense versus just the physical smash-mouth version of football. That's what this series is going to be, what you expect it to be at least. Because Edmonton is flying up and down the ice. They've got the greatest playmakers in the world between Draisaitl and McDavid. And then on the Panther side of things, like, yes, Matthew Tkachuk is a superstar, but in an old-fashioned style and just a true throwback. They play physical, grinded out, honestly kind of blues-style hockey from 2019, but with more pizzazz. I love these kinds of matchups anytime that we can get them in sports. I think it's going to come down to, and it's not like some high-level analysis, but it's true, who's able to dictate the terms.
Yep.
Is it going to be more wide open, or is Edmonton going to find a way to beat up the Florida Panthers defense, not in like a physical sense, but get behind them consistently? Or are the Florida Panthers able to grind down what Edmonton is trying to do? And are we going to play a little slower, a little bit more in the offensive zone, and more of a puck possession battle? Whoever wins that battle is ultimately going to win this series. It's elementary, but it's true. That's the way that, in my opinion, this series is going to be won by one of the two.
You always get those goaltending matchups, too. You know, the one goaltender that is able to come up with the big save in one game seems to always dictate the rest of the series.
If Skinner ends up winning this series,
it's embarrassing.
I don't even know what to say.
It's just embarrassing. But Sergei Bobrovsky's also a dude that's like been a massive choke artist, and if he wins it, that changes narratives also.
Just remember, Stuart Skinner, if he wins the Cup, not the worst goalie to win in the last 3 years. That belongs to Darcy Kemper.
Yeah, amen to that. Darcy Kemper winning the Stanley Cup still to me is like, this should have never happened.
What a weird stretch of goalies to be able to win it. And like, there's no shot against Jordan Binnington, but Jordan Binnington winning it in 2019 was weird as well.
Yeah.
The guy came out of nowhere, and then January 1st, they were like, hey, this guy's going to be a starter. We suck. Like, see if you can catch lightning in a bottle. And then not only did they, but he ended up becoming the best goalie in the NHL for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah. And then, you know, you had Aiden Hill. Like, the one goalie that made sense was Vasilevsky winning it in 21, because 20 was just an anomaly. But him winning it.
I wonder why teams don't trade for veteran, established goalies.
Yeah.
It's because of this stuff.
Yeah,
because you can find the guy and then plug him in, and suddenly you're winning the cup.
Please don't let Stuart Skinner win.
He's Alex T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved. We'll get to One's Got to Go at 1:30. But next, the Cardinals might have found one of those right-handed relievers that they've been missing. Is some Raycroft guy going to become a legitimate high-leverage option for them? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. All right, so who is Chris Roycroft?
It's the Cardinals pitcher, man.
Where did he come from? Why was he available?
Dundee, Illinois. That's where he came from.
How has he become a high leverage arm for the St. Louis Cardinals? These are all questions that we're trying to explore. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, Chris Roycroft is 27 years old. He is 6'8".
Yeah, he is.
And listed at 230 pounds.
Play hockey?
As far as I can tell, no. He did, however, play in a summer league in Bismarck.
Hockey?
So it's possible that maybe while he was up in the Dakotas, he got some exposure to hockey.
Man,
maybe we'll ask him about that next time that we're down at the ballpark.
He's a righty, though. We need a lefty. I wonder if he can work with his offhand.
We can see.
Because that's a mongoon right there.
I think Chris Roycroft has a chance to be something for this team. The way that I did whenever they had Luis Garcia, what was this, 2021, if I'm not mistaken? Yeah. When he came in, I got mad at Mike Schultz for using him in a high leverage spot, and then he gave up the lead, and then the rest of that season he was amazing, and then ended up getting a pretty decent contract with the San Diego Padres. I don't know what Chris Roycroft's future is going to look like. Garcia at that point had a previous MLB history in which he had success. And he just lost it for like 5 years, and then he got good again. Roycroft came out of nowhere, dude. This is a guy that was pretty decent, but not great while he was in college. And then after the pandemic, signed with an independent league and was mostly bad in the independent league his first year. And then boom, 2022 happens. And Alex, over the course of just 16 innings, but 16 innings nonetheless, struck out 24 in 16 innings, had really good stuff. The Cardinals saw enough that they were like, you know what, let's give this guy a shot. Let's see what this looks like. So they bring him in. And last year, throughout the season, moved his way up the minor leagues despite having zero command whatsoever. Walked 41 batters over the course of 63 innings for the Cardinals in the minor leagues. No control of anything. Finished with a 5.8 ERA. Comes back this year. And in AAA was amazing for the Memphis Redbirds. 18 innings, had 16 strikeouts, did have a few walks, 6 of them in that, but only allowed, over the course of those 18 innings, 2 earned runs. So he was pretty damn effective down there. Yesterday before the game, Ollie Marmol told reporters he wanted to see what he's got. He wanted to see him in a high leverage spot. Well, you had that opportunity yesterday, gave you 4 outs for the game. Ended up striking out the side in his full inning. Alex, is this the Cardinals reliever that we were looking for? Because we've been saying over the last week or so, without Gio, with Keenan Middleton going down to injury, they need another high leverage power right-handed arm. Can Chris Roycroft, in your opinion, be that guy?
Long term, I don't know. But for right now, he absolutely is and should be. I would continue to throw him out there in high leverage situations the same way that you were using Giovanni Gallegos and the same way you were planning on using Keenan Middleton. You have another righty who can come out of the bullpen to relieve guys like Ryan Helsley and Andrew Kittredge. Frankly, if he continues to pitch this way, I think he Wally pips Giovanni Gallegos.
He got rocked yesterday.
Yeah, Gallegos comes back, and I'm not using you in a high-leverage situation. You will be one of my arms to go to when I need to give guys breaks and games are out of hand. But Roycroft, and again, it's a small sample size. I think he's had 2 games that have gotten out of hand for him, and the one was his first game, which I can't shut down a guy on that one to get his first major league game and it go haywire. But he's got strikeout stuff. He's intimidating on the mound. I don't know what this looks like by the end of the season. Frankly, by next year, he could look like what Luis Garcia looks like right now, to where it's like, God, thank God we didn't sign that guy. T-Bone wanted it.
Whoa, sorry, throw me under the bus like that.
It's what we do on this show. But for right now, he is the guy that I'm going to go to when Helsley, well, not in Helsley because he's not closing games. He's the guy I go to when Andrew Kittredge needs a night off.
Yeah, he's the best chance right now, I think, internally to fill the role that we've been talking about as the guy that can kind of be right there with Fernandez. That's like the 6th inning guy that if you need a right-handed arm or JoJo's down or whatever it may be as another high leverage arm, he's the best one internally. Like Kyle Leahy, he's pitched fine, but he doesn't have swing and miss stuff. Roycroft is just filthy. That stuff is nasty. So if he can hone that in, Yeah, I think you give him a little bit of runway here. See if he can fill this role that we've been talking about as an extra right-handed arm that helps you deep into games. And if he can't, then that's what you have to upgrade at the deadline, because you're probably not going to find out if O'Reilly O'Brien can get back to form when he comes back from the injured list. Nick Robertson, I don't think he's going to be that guy. Yeah, and we'll see, but I would still feel more comfortable with a guy that has a bigger sample size than what you're probably going to get out of O'Brien by the trade deadline if you're buying. But I think he is the best chance internally for them to fill this role that we've been talking about, because he's just got swing and miss stuff. And it isn't like we're seeing this and you're looking at it going, that's probably a one-off. He struck out the side. It was Colorado. That stuff would have played against the Philadelphia Phillies. That's how good his stuff was last night.
There's probably some that are listening right now. They're like, are you guys really going to talk about Chris Roycroft for the next 10 minutes?
You're damn right we are.
The answer is no, but the reason why I wanted to bring it up, I think the Cardinals deserve some credit here. Now, they have done a lot of stuff that is wrong that we disagreed with at the moment. It's not second-guessing, it's first-guessing. But one thing that we said all offseason that we liked that has really come true this year, they did a really good job of giving themselves outs, giving themselves options when it comes to their bullpen. Now, the Keenan Middleton signing clearly has not worked out. He's been hurt all year. He is not going to throw a pitch for them this season. But they were able to find other alternatives. They had Riley O'Brien. Well, when Riley O'Brien goes down, they have Ryan Fernandez. They had Nick Robertson. That one hasn't worked out. Well, now here you go. Chris Roycroft. They signed him out at independent ball last year. He becomes somebody that can potentially help them this season. They've done a really good job of just giving themselves alternatives even when other guys go down due to injury. So they deserve credit for that. They've missed on a lot of stuff, and they did this with guys that are not high cost. They didn't trade big time assets for a reliever. They didn't go out there and end up spending a bunch of money on a multi-year contract for relievers. They did this the way that smart organizations go about it when it comes to building a bullpen. They had options internally, and they've been able to continue to lean on different guys. And credit to Ollie Marmol, who's gone to some of these guys in bigger roles, where if they prove to him, hey, I can be a guy that gets you seventh inning, down by one or up by one, I can get you out of that inning. He'll go to them in that spot. So that is one thing that this team does deserve a little bit of credit for. One thing they don't deserve a lot of credit for, though, is they don't have a fifth starter once again. Did you see this yesterday, guys? Ollie Marmol said pregame that he's not committing to anybody as the starter for Sunday, which was previously expected to be Andre Palante, and now they're saying, maybe not so fast. We're not sure who's going to start that game for us on Sunday.
I swear, if they start Matthew Liberatore in that spot, I'm going to be livid.
I don't think they can, because he entered the game yesterday, so I'd be pretty shocked if they decide to start him on Sunday after basically 2 days rest. What are the alternatives?
Is Zach Thompson in line?
I'd have to check.
When was his last start?
Probably due to start today or tomorrow would be my guess.
But
while you look that up, they don't have another option. All this is gamemanship right now. Unless,
it would be, by the way.
Unless they do Zach Thompson.
He'd be in time.
I can't see them going there. I think they're running back with Andre Palante. I just think I think what they're hoping for, Ollie Marmol is hoping for, I should say, is the front office pulls off a magical deal and all of a sudden a starter comes in and they can plug him in for Sunday's game when they need that fifth starter.
Julio Teheran was out there.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not going to happen. I don't understand what they're saying by doing this, because it's going to be Andre Palante. I would be genuinely shocked if it is anybody else. I don't think they're turning to Zach Thompson, because I still don't think they're impressed. Everything I've read about Zach Thompson, it always still gets brought up. They're still waiting for him to maintain velocity. Well, okay, if that's the case, he's not going to be up here then.
His Thompson's stat line on June 2nd, 5 hits in 4 innings pitched, 5 earned runs, 4 walks, 6 strikeouts.
Yeah, what they're really telling you is that we don't have we don't have a guy starter. We'll figure this thing out. I don't know who it's going to be. It could be Kyle Leahy. They might do what T-Bone was suggesting last time, where they start a guy from one side, they go to another, and then they go to that. Just figure it out as we go along here, right? Hey, put as many left-handed hitters in your lineup as possible, and then we're going to put Andre Palante in the game, and you get to decide.
Yeah.
Are you going with the lefties here? Are you going to leave them in? Or are you going to burn all of your bench early so that way you can then get your right-handed hitters into the lineup to face off against a guy like Andre Palante? Maybe start out that game with Andrew Kittredge, who's done it before in the past. We saw them go to him out of the rain delay recently. I don't know. I don't know exactly what they decide to do there, but they're probably going to have to start getting creative with that fifth starter. And Andre Palante has plenty of experience coming out of the bullpen, so it wouldn't be something that's new or foreign to him to start the game as a quote-unquote reliever, if that makes sense.
And I think because the first time around when you probably try this, let's say today, Ollie Marmol announces, we're going to go to Kyle Leahy, it's going to be an opener, a team probably is still going to load the lineup up with right-handed hitters because they want to see you blink first. When are you going to go to the quote-unquote starter for that game that eats the bulk of the innings?
And then go from there.
And look, maybe the first time around you try this, maybe Leahy goes 2 innings, then maybe you turn to like a, I don't know, John King for an inning or a Roycroft for an inning. You try and buy time to show that, hey, we're not going to blink first, so the next time you do try the opener, then teams will go, okay, well, maybe we have to balance out the lineup a little better. All of that said, basically what I just described to you was Spanish saying this team does not have a fifth starter, and they are bleeped.
He's Tanner. That's Alex. I'm BK. Coming up next, one's got to go. You give us 4 options. We'll tell you which one's got to go here on BK and Ferrario.
Terry Hendricks here with a Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals fell to the Rockies yesterday 3-2. They are back in action tonight. 7:15 will be first pitch. Austin Gomber gets the start for Colorado. Lance Lynn will be on the mound for the St. Louis Cardinals. And tomorrow night here on 101 ESPN, we've got Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals for you between the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6:30. This Sports Update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, independent Air Standard Heating and Air Conditioning dealer.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, coming up here in just a couple of minutes, we will give you a chance to win a pair of tickets. 4-pack of tickets, in fact. 2 pair. To next Tuesday night's Budweiser Bash for the Cardinals versus the Pirates. Budweiser Bash game this week features a limited edition Jason Isringhausen bobblehead. So, coming up here in just a couple of minutes, we'll give you your chance to win that 4-pack of tickets here on BK and Ferrario. Coming up on the Fast Lane, they've got you taken care of from 2 to 6. I was about to say they've got some Battlehawks tickets to give away.
And then you saw it say in bold letters, not Friday.
Yeah, that's on me.
Good job reading, though.
I apologize. I was real close to getting that right.
No, but
I could give you some insight as to why I almost did that, but I'm just going to go ahead and keep that behind the scenes.
But don't apologize, man. All you were saying was coming up on the Fast Lane from 2 to 6. Anthony Stalter, Jamie Rivers, Kerry Davis.
They're going to do a great job.
Yeah, they're going to talk. They're going to talk sports for 4 hours.
It's going to be amazing. A Friday afternoon with the guys. You can't beat it. All right, but right now, you give us 4 options. We'll tell you which one's got to go. It is a game we like to play called One's Gotta Go here on BK and Ferrario. Alex, One's Gotta Go playoff contender edition in the NFL. The Ravens, the Chiefs, the 49ers, or the Eagles. One of them has to go, meaning you will eliminate them from getting to the playoffs this year.
I'll say the Ravens. I don't believe that, though, because I kind of want to say the Eagles, and I think the Eagles might crap the bed. I think the NFC is more of the wild, wild west, so I'm going to say the Eagles. They don't get there. I don't like Nick Sirianni anyway.
I'm going Eagles as well. They're the team that interests me the least out of these teams. I would love to see the Ravens, the Chiefs, and then the 49ers getting there again this year. It's more fun in terms of the matchups and the story.
Niners, Lions. That's what it's going to be.
Hell yeah. That'd be great.
I'm with you guys. I would say get rid of the Eagles because I just want to see the issue that occurs.
Yeah.
When they fire Flower Boy Sirianni see the news that comes out of there when they're like, we could have went out and gotten somebody new. We could have gotten Bill Belichick last offseason.
Get my boy Jordan Davis out of that place. Get him out of there. Put him on a good place.
I almost said Chiefs, but you know what? I heard Stoltz say this yesterday on the Fast Lane. I think we need more villains, and I think the Chiefs are that. So them being in the playoffs.
Do you think they've become that?
Yeah.
Do you think the Chiefs are the villains?
I hate watching them.
Yeah. I think people
Is it because of me?
No.
Or is it because of the team?
There's some of that.
I think people hate watching the players on the team.
I'm tired of seeing Mahomes whine all the time.
Yep.
I hate the cockiness to him, and I can't even be upset about it a lot because they are so freaking good.
Yep. Mahomes is like I think he's the poster child for hated players right now in the NFL.
Really?
I'd agree.
He's a whiner, man. He's a whiner.
He's Tom Brady 2.0. You either love him or you hate him.
Every single call he's got to complain about
I'm
it.
surprised by this. I thought Kelsey would be the most hated player on the team.
I actually find him. Yeah.
Really?
I think that's good PR for himself.
Yeah.
The podcast helps him, man. I think that those guys are
He's a
fun.
likable personality.
Mahomes, every time I see Mahomes on the television, he's, it was a bad call.
I got pushed.
I pushed it over.
Yeah.
Nobody likes that.
We gave our answers on that.
Except
One's
BK.
got to go. I said the Eagles. I love Patrick Mahomes.
Everybody loves the whiner
He's the
except
most
BK.
important person in the history of Kansas City. And yes, that includes the person that ended up becoming the president of the United States. One's got to go. Pro Championship Edition. The World Series, the NBA Finals, the Super Bowl, or the Stanley Cup Finals. Alex, which one's got to go?
Mine would be the NBA Finals. It's a close tie with World Series, but The World Series, I always find myself gravitating towards. Last night, game 1 of the finals, and I know BK is going to be like, see, you don't watch the games. I flipped it on by
that was fair. You didn't
third
need to watch
quarter.
last night.
Well, it was mostly because the game was out of hand, but it's like we watch the Cardinals. My number one focus was not on that game. My number one focus on Saturday is going to be the NHL playoffs.
I would say the Stanley Cup final for me. And I can't stand the NBA. I think of these 4 products, I think the NBA is the most frustrating product to watch because it's obvious they don't try in the regular season defensively. They sit out if anything hurts, and they allow everybody in the freaking playoffs. But with that being said, until recently, you had a lot of teams to where it did feel like in a lot of seasons you could go like, okay, we already know who's going to get there. It's just a matter of when they collide. For example, the three-peat between Golden State and the Cavs. But like those were like some of the best players in the world. You got to watch an incredible 7-game series. The NHL, I do enjoy the Stanley Cup playoffs, but it's just there's less compelling storylines every single year.
It's a crap take, man. Crap take.
He's going to agree with me.
No, he's not.
Yeah, he is.
I'm going to NBA Finals.
That's my boy.
I'm going to NBA Finals. I think it's provided the least compelling matchups, basically since the LeBron Golden State era. I miss those days where it felt like a crescendo every year, where you get to the finals and you're like, damn, this isn't just a finals for this year. It feels like the finals for an era of basketball. It's really rare to have that. I feel like in the last few years, it hasn't felt as big. And this year, I feel like the Stanley Cup Finals has that feel to it. It feels big to me. And I say that as like a casual hockey fan. I'm a Blues fan. I'm a casual National Hockey fan. This series has pulled to me more so, in my opinion, than the NBA Finals does this year. So that's why I would go that way. All right. One's got to go, Cardinals edition. This comes from the text line. Nato, Goldie, Ollie, or Mo. Which one's got to go?
Man, they are making this tough on us. Can I say all 4?
Whoa, Goldie's been hitting, man.
Sure, yes.
I think my answer would be Mo, but not for the reason that a lot of the text lines answer would be. I think it's just time for a change in voice. I think you do get to a place where like 17 years is a really long time to run anything, especially a baseball operations
Is
department.
it him building a great 2013 team that's really making you think that way?
Yeah.
2004.
So I'll go Mo. I could listen to the argument for Nolan Arenado, though.
He's the one I would say.
I was the one I was going to pick, too.
Just the money. It's the amount of flexibility that you're able to get by trading him.
I know for a fact that Mo's gone in 2 years no matter what.
That's a good point.
Well, I assume he's going to stick to his word and not pull a Brett Favre and retire and come back. But I would say Arenado because he's the biggest issue for the St. Louis Cardinals because of his contract.
Yeah, I would say so, too. You could spend that money elsewhere and make your team a little bit better, and you can move guys to a different position and get them in the lineup more.
All right, last one here. One's got to go water activities edition. Swimming, tubing, water skiing, or boating.
Oh, this is easy. Water skiing. It's not even fun.
I'm with you.
It is. You got to focus
Have you
on.
ever been?
Yeah, you got to focus staying upright.
Yeah,
and then every
it's hard
time you
on
go
the
down, you
legs.
got to worry that mosquito to hit you in the face.
Yeah.
Not fun.
Yeah, I'm with him. I've done it before.
Tubing is the
hard
best.
on the legs. Tubing I'm in on. The whole skiing and like you're out there with the wobbly legs.
My dad used to abuse me while I was tubing.
Oh, me too, man.
Oh.
Did your dad do it to where he like pulled you all the way around towards the boat and then just flung you the other way?
Yeah. That's my body going across the lake, and I was like,
my
there
dad
goes Brandon. Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
My
he's
dad
on
would
the
tell me-
He
shoreline.
might be having fun.
My dad would tell me, he's like, I'm going to try and skip rocks with you. And I'm like, oh, this is going to hurt.
I don't
Yeah,
want to
you
go
feel
tubing.
like you're on glass. Like it's no longer water. Somehow they like replace the Lake of the Ozarks with just plexiglass.
You
It's
get-
right across the top.
You get rug burn, but it's water burn. You're like, wait a minute, how did I get this bruise?
Yeah, but the answer is water skiing. It's just
It's not fun.
tubing is fun while also being incredibly painful. Water skiing is just painful. Yeah, it's just painful,
And
man.
hard.
If you're good at it, I could totally see how that would be number 1 on your list. I love boating. I enjoy swimming. If you guys could, would you rather go to the beach, go like floating down the river, or go to the lake?
Well,
What would be
yours
your
is
top option?
the hotel.
Well, yeah, of course. I'm not an outdoors guy.
Mine would be the lake. I'm not a big beach guy.
Really?
I mean, it's fun to go to, but it's like I dislike sand with a passion. And then as soon as I get into that ocean, I'm like, yeah, cool. What's underneath me right now that's going to kill me?
That
The lake,
part
I'm
is a
just
little
worried about
alarming.
fish.
I feel like once you hit 30,
The beach was never a thing for me, though, man. Even when I was younger, it's just like, meh.
I enjoy the beach. I would say beach 1 with lake very close second.
you guys know I love the beach, but I love being at the pool where I
In
can
your hotel.
oversee the beach.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the
Not
look.
on the beach or in the water. At the pool in front of the water.
Yep. No, I don't even need to be in front of the water. Like, I just put me in a room where I can see the beach. That's my beach.
Oh, no. That is a huge miss. Huge miss.
I would say for me though, the lake is the one that I would have lowest on the wrong. I would go beach, river, lake.
Oh yeah,
I like a good float trip, man.
River is at the bottom of that
I mean,
list.
I've never done really a float trip, so
T-Bone, I
maybe
think
it's why I'm low.
you'd enjoy a good float trip.
I
the
can do
three
that.
of us should do a show float trip.
I will never do a
That
float
would be
trip.
amazing. We'd have so much fun, guys.
There's
It would be like going
freaking
to
water
Alton.
vipers in there. There's black cobras in there. They'll eat your. Oh no, man, I'm out.
This is like going to Alton, but we're intense
No.
together.
What?
You
No,
camping.
no, I'm
You
out.
don't.
I'm out.
Yeah. If there is one thing I don't do, it's camping.
The most shocking thing in the history of this show is me being the one that suggests we should go camping.
I've done 2 float trips in my life. The first one, my mom got heat stroke and was in the hospital afterwards. The other one, I went with my wife, girlfriend at the time. One of our friends got bit by a snake, and
There's
I said,
a
"I'm out."
100% chance that Alex would black out if we went on a float trip together.
Oh, God, yeah.
100% chance.
It's like golfing, but worse for me.
6 hours, you afloat, rafting, a
tell you
raft
what,
floating down the river.
If there was enough fan interest in it, I would consider doing it.
We should. Oh, you want to do like a vlog
Yeah.
for the YouTube?
I bet you the fast lane will do it with us.
I'm in.
Oh, I can't.
That would be a good.
There's no way I could go on a
Jamie
float
would
trip.
drink me under the
Yeah, I
table.
was going to say I would probably die off that
Stalter
float trip
would too.
Yeah.
I would die on that float trip with those guys.
Carrie has
If you want to go
been.
on the morning show, I'm in.
Carrie has been to every.
I could probably hold my own with those guys. I can't. The fast lane would just
I feel
annihilate
like
me.
Rockio could probably drink.
Oh yeah, Rockio
I
could
don't
take.
think Randy does drink and
No, I don't believe so. Rockio would do
We've
it.
gone
but
out with Brooke before. We went to the Blues and Brews this past year.
I know what the outcome would be if I went on a float trip with the fast lane. I would try and stay on pace with those guys, and I guarantee all 4 of them would just annihilate me.
I think we should do this. I think we should make this happen.
I'm in.
We could get it sponsored. We could go out there. We could have a good time together.
What
Let's
happens
go on
if I get bit by a snake?
a BK and Ferrario
I got
and the
you.
fast
I'm
lane
CPR certified.
with 105.7 The Point. We could get Donnie
Reshow?
involved
Oh,
with this.
Donnie!
Maybe the Reese show would get involved. We need this. We need this to happen.
What if a water moccasin gets you?
It's fine. Right now is your chance to win a 4-pack of tickets to next Tuesday night's
fine.
Budweiser Bash game for the Cardinals
Maybe
versus the
take a Monday
Pirates. If you're
off.
texter number 101
Damn.
with the correct answer to the following question, you are getting those tickets. Earlier today, we mentioned Team USA won a big championship yesterday, one of the biggest upsets we've seen in professional sports. What sport did they win? What was the sport that they won yesterday, the championship in? If you're texter number 101 with the correct answer, you're getting that 4-pack of tickets to next Tuesday night's Budweiser Bash game for Cardinals versus the Pirates. More information now at cardinals.com/promotions. Coming up next, the Rewind here on 101 ESPN. Alex and T-Bone on BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We got to get a flow trip. We've got to make it happen. Our text line's interested. The YouTube chat is interested. The fast lane, Jamie Rivers just came down. He said he's interested.
This is how we get T-Bone a date. This is how we meet. This is future Hendrickson.
T-Bone's going to be making out with some random chick on the Huza. It's going to be amazing.
Wait, man, have some respect.
Yeah.
Have some respect.
T-Bone's
going to be floating down
like
in the
a float
Speedo.
trip body to you?
Oh, God, yeah. You put a Speedo on that thing, T-Bone is
You can wear a
ready
t-shirt
to
down the Huza if you want.
Don't be a T-shirt dude in the water.
not a
Don't be a
tank.
T-shirt dude in the water.
BK's so a T-shirt dude in the water.
BK totally is. No, he's a water suit person.
It's like, well, I brought my water suit
He's
so I don't
afraid to
get
get
wet.
water in his eyes. He would wear, what are those
Goggles?
called? Goggles.
Yeah.
He would
All
wear
right,
goggles
if you
on a
missed
float
anything
trip.
from
What a
today's show, be
loser.
sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com. The free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Center.
Alex. Cardinals have 3 games over the weekend against Colorado. How many do they take?
1.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I love content.
I've got them winning 2 of the next 3, T-Bone.
I'm with you. I think they split the series.
Battlehawks win or lose this weekend?
I'll say win.
I'll say win.
They just beat them last week. I think they're going to do it once again. I think the offense gets back on track this time around. A.J. McCarron got his sea legs back last week. He'll be good to go this week. City, good win finally?
They play. Nope. 1-1 tie.
Okay. They have 1 win, I believe it is, in their last 6 weeks of play, so it would be nice to get a win there. The guys will have you taken care of on Monday at 11 a.m. I will be back on the morning show, so if you would please tune into the morning show from 7 to 10 a.m. You should always be doing that. I will be in with Randy Carricker. It's the first time I've ever hosted a show with Randy Carricker, so I'm looking forward to doing that. 7 to 10. The guys will have you at 11 o'clock. You guys have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe out there. Enjoy what should be some nice weather over the weekend. We'll talk to you guys on Monday here on 101 ESPN.